Chapter 264. It's good that you have such thoughts. It won't be too late to thank her when you're better. The Empress suddenly interrupted Rong Jin. Even though she was smiling, her gaze toward Rong Jin was filled with warning. Rong Jin's lips moved, but he swallowed his remaining words. Now that his father's opinion of him had changed, it might be more appropriate to speak when the situation was better. Emperor Jiawen looked at Rong Jin with deep meaning. Based on his understanding of his son, he wouldn't admit that he was wrong in front of everyone even if he was saved by Chu Luiyue. His change in attitude was a little strange. Emperor Jiawen didn't know what he was thinking. And I heard that Chu Xianmin has been taking care of you these few days? Rong Jin nodded nonchalantly. Emperor Jiawen smiled. That child is not bad and she's quite sincere to you. After a while you can raise her status. Your Majesty, the Gu family and the Chu family are still in a stalemate. The Empress reminded him softly. Emperor Jiawen paused and then remembered that Chu Xinmin's mother, Lu Yao, had done a lot of good deeds. Not only did she steal the Chu family's money, but she also secretly instigated the Gu family's madam to cause trouble at Tianlu Academy. If it weren't for the Lu family and Crown Prince Mansion, Lu Yao might not have been able to leave the Gu family alive. Even so, she was harshly taught a lesson. With such a family and parents, Chu Xinmin's reputation wasn't any better. She really wasn't suitable for raising her status. Emperor Jiawen swallowed the rest of his words. Just treat her well. Yes, Your Majesty. Rong Jin agreed verbally, but he didn't think so in his heart. Father could say such things so easily because he didn't see Chu Xianmin's face. He did want to treat Chu Xianmin better, but every time he saw her, he would unknowingly remember the horrifying and ugly face he saw that night. No matter what, he couldn't develop any feelings for her. Besides, the Chu family was on the decline now, and Lu Yao and Chu Yan's situation wasn't optimistic. He was already kind enough for not despising Chu Xinmin's family for bringing so much trouble to him. How could he treat them well? Ding. A crisp sound was suddenly heard in the competition venue. That was the sound of someone successfully refining a pill. Everyone hurriedly looked over and found that this person was He Yang, who was the first to choose the prescription. His forehead was full of sweat, and his face was red from nervousness and excitement. At this moment, he was carefully placing the medicinal soup that he had refined in his medicinal cauldron into a jade box that he had prepared beforehand. A strong medicinal fragrance wafted out. Looks like his refinement was very successful. The medicinal effect of this decoction is probably not low. I heard that he had already broken through to become a level 3 doctor last year. He just needs to take one more step and he will be a real celestial physician. As long as you can't produce pills, you can't be considered a celestial physician. He wanted to know if he could cross this threshold. You have to know that some people will remain as a level 3 doctor for their entire lives. Easy for you to say. There were less than 5 celestial physicians in country Yaochen. Being able to become a level 3 doctor was already considered pretty good. How could they expect everyone to be a celestial physician? In my opinion, there are less than 3 people in this competition who have the ability to form a pill. It's even harder to say who will succeed in the end. The young man carefully presented the jade box to the 3 celestial physicians sitting beside him. These 3 physicians came from 3 different academies, and they judged together to ensure fairness. The one in the middle was Elder Feng Yi from Tianlu Academy. On his left and right were Elder Cheng Lixue from Nanfeng Academy and Elder Mo Tsang from Taiyan Academy. Elder Feng Yi opened the jade box, glanced at it and said, "Level 3 middle grade." The smile on He Yang's face froze for a moment. He was a level 3 doctor, so the medicinal soup that he refined was naturally level 3 as well. However, there were differences in standards even among doctors of the same level. He originally thought that he could be considered a level 3 superior grade. Therefore, Elder Feng Yi's judgment had more or less disappointed him. He took a deep breath and looked at the other 2 elders. However, after the other 2 looked at it, they gave the same judgment. Seeing that the arbitration elder was about to record the results, He Yang hurriedly said, "Elders, please take a look again. Is this student's medicine really only a middle-grade medicine?" Elder Feng Yi smiled and shook his head. "Are you doubting the 3 of us?" He Yang immediately lowered his head. "I wouldn't dare. It's just that. However, if it was really middle grade, then he definitely wouldn't be able to get a good ranking. Actually, you know very well what the grade of this medicine of yours is. Although you refined it according to the prescription, you didn't handle the herbs cleanly enough and left some impurities, which will affect the medicine's efficacy. Don't tell me you didn't see the mottled colors on it?" He Yang's face flushed red and he didn't dare to argue any more. He hurriedly said, "Thank you for your guidance, elders. After saying that, he quickly retreated. Elder Feng Yi and the other two elders looked at each other and smiled. They were heavenly doctors who had gone through hundreds of battles. They only needed to take a look at the medicine and smell it to be able to accurately guess the quality of the medicine. How could they make a wrong judgment? I'm afraid we still have to wait for a while before we can get to level 3 superior grade. Elder Cheng Lishue stroked his beard. Elder Emotsang snorted. Haha, if there's someone here who can refine a pill, this old man will be more than happy to wait. Elder Feng Yi and Elder Cheng Lishue exchanged glances. Who couldn't tell that he was secretly praising Situ Xingqian? From his tone, it was as if he was certain that Situ Xingqian could produce a pill. But at this moment, there was a sudden movement in the competition hall. The crowd hurriedly looked over and saw that the movement came from the cauldron in front of a young man. He's about to produce a pill? Exclaimed Elder Cheng Lishue in surprise. Like him, that young man was from Nanfeng Academy, so he was naturally happy to see him produce a pill. Elder Feng Yi stared at him for a while and didn't say anything. However, Elder Emotsang poured cold water on him. He's producing a pill so quickly? Don't be too anxious, right? What if something goes wrong? Cheng Lishue furrowed his brows in frustration. Emotsang, I've never said anything bad about Taiyan Academy students. Emotsang shrugged. Can't you tell? The fire in his cauldron can't hold on for much longer. Cheng Lishue was shocked. He looked over and realized that it was indeed so. That young man's face rapidly turned pale, and his body trembled as if he had reached his limit. The smile on his face gradually disappeared. Indeed, not long after, the fire in the cauldron was completely extinguished. Even the medicinal ingredients that were in the process of being fused into a pill had all turned into ashes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 265. With that, Chu Liwei quickly walked past Situ Xingqian and rushed in front of the young man. Hand it over. The young man was startled by Chu Liue's attitude and took a step back. What are you doing? I don't know what you're talking about. He pointed at the cauldron that had already toppled over and complained. You destroyed my elixir. This young man was another student of Taiyan Academy who had chosen to form his elixir, Yang Jianqing. Not long after Situ Xingqian had started forming his elixir, he had also reached this step. When Chu Liue's dagger had flown over, the outline of the elixir could already be vaguely seen inside the cauldron. Now that it had been destroyed, Yang Jianqing looked at Chu Liue furiously after he came to his senses. Chu Liue narrowed his eyes. You know very well what I want. Are you going to take it yourself or do you want me to do it for you? Yang Jianqing was intimidated by the cold pressure coming from her body and couldn't help but tremble from the bottom of his heart. Chu Liue looked like a teenage girl, but she had an aura about her that no one dared to defy. Being stared at by those obsidian eyes, Yang Jianqing couldn't help but feel a little guilty. He averted his gaze and his voice was also a little airy. I don't understand. Chu Liue. We were having a good competition but you just had to barge in at this time. I'd like to ask you, what right do you have to do this? Chu Liue's expression turned cold and she was about to step forward. At this moment, the surrounding people finally reacted. Qing Han was the first to speak harshly. Chu Liue. How dare you? What do you think this place is for you to act like this? Chu Liue sneered and turned around. Dean Qing Han, if it wasn't for the fact that someone from your academy made a mistake, I wouldn't have come here so rashly. What did you say? Qing Han frowned, feeling even more furious. Are you implying that there's something wrong with Yang Jianqing? Chu Liue shrugged. No, I'm explicitly saying that. Qing Han choked and trembled in anger. Who did Chu Liue think he was? How dare he question their Extreme Yen Academy in public? Not only did he destroy their students' pill, he even dared to slander them. He knew that he was no match for Chu Liue in terms of eloquence. Besides, with his status, it would be embarrassing for him to argue with Chu Liue in public. He looked at Sun Zhongyan and shouted in a low voice. Sun Zhongyan. This is the kind of student your academy has nurtured. Truly audacious to the extreme, doing as he pleased. Does she really think she can be so arrogant just because she got first place twice? Sun Zhongyan was also shocked by Chu Liue's actions. However, he had always had a good impression of Chu Liue, so even though her actions were too sudden, he still felt that there must be a reason for it. Liue has always known her limits. She must have a reason for doing this. Once she explains herself, Brother Qing Han, it won't be too late to pursue this matter. Isn't that right? Qing Han gritted his teeth. Sun Zhongyan was very protective of Chu Liue. Sun Zhongyan, Chu Luiyue has ruined the last match of the youth's gathering. You've caused such a disaster and you're still going to pretend that nothing has happened? Sun Zhongyan glanced at the situation on the field and coughed, reminding him. Brother Qinghan, isn't the competition still going on? Luiyue went up and only knocked over Yang Jianqing's medicine cauldron, preventing him from forming the pill. The others are still fine. Oh, right, there's also Situ Xingqian. Qinghan was stunned. He turned his head to take a closer look and found that it was indeed so. Other than Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian, the others really did not seem to have been affected. On one hand, the field was very big. In order to make it easier to refine pills, each student occupied a large area on their own. The distance between each student was not very small. On the other hand, Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian were both students of Super Yen Academy. The two of them were next to each other, so although Situ Xingqian was affected more, the others in the distance were not. His lips moved, feeling embarrassed and annoyed. If that's the case, it proves that Luiyue did it on purpose. Otherwise, why would she destroy the students of our academy when there are so many people on the field? And the two who are in the process of forming their pills. Sun Zhongyan smiled. Brother Qinghan, Luiyue was obviously targeting Yang Jianqing. Everyone can see this and Luiyue herself admits it. As for Situ Xingqian, honestly speaking, the destruction of her pills is mostly due to her own fault, right? Southwind Academy's Qi Yunfeng is also on the verge of forming his pill, and he's also next to Yang Jianqing. The distance between the two of them is the same as the distance between Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian. Isn't he still doing fine? Fu Yunshan stroked his beard, somewhat pleased with himself. That child Yunfeng has always been calm and steady. When he saw Situ Xingqian and Yang Jianqing form their pills one after another, he was still a little worried. But who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would appear out of nowhere? He'd actually finished off both of them at the same time. Now that the two academies were at loggerheads, he would naturally watch the show from the sidelines and even add fuel to the fire. Just now, I saw that the flames in Situ Xingqian's medicine cauldron seemed a little unstable. It seemed to be in a similar situation to that of the student from our academy. Li Shue, what do you think? Cheng Li Shue was just regretting that his academy had lost a student who could compete for a place in the rankings, but when he heard Fu Yunshan's words, he immediately understood. That's right. The process of forming a pill is very energy-consuming. If one's strength is insufficient, the flames in the medicine cauldron will be extinguished at any time, resulting in failure. In my opinion, Situ Xingqian's pill might not have been. Cheng Li Shue. Don't speak nonsense. Xingqian's pill was clearly about to form just now. If not for Chu Luiyue's interference, how could it have failed? Qinghan immediately retorted, his face ashen. He was obviously doubting Situ Xingqian's strength. Cheng Li Shue chuckled. President Qinghan, as a heavenly doctor, shouldn't you know very well whether I'm speaking nonsense or not? The pill is about to form, but it hasn't formed yet. Until the very last moment, who knows what the result will be. If only they could take the opportunity to kick Situ Xingqian and Yang Jianqing out. How could Qinghan not know what the Southwind Academy was planning? He didn't want to waste any more time with them, instead looking at Sun Zhongyan again. No matter what, Chu Luiyue must give us an explanation for today's matter. Otherwise, we won't have to participate in this youngsters' gathering. The moment these words were said, everyone fell silent for a moment. They hadn't expected Qinghan to use this as a threat. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. Martial artists and mystic masters hadn't taken first place, so they only had this last bit of hope left. If Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian didn't get a place because of this, then they would really have suffered a crushing defeat. Sun Zhongyan looked hesitantly at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look. President Qinghan, since you want to explain, then please listen carefully. Chu Luiyue raised his hand and pointed at Yang Jianqing, his gaze cold. Every word fell like thunder. He has the blood-red goo on him. Mobile users, please browse to read. A better reading experience came from LoveNet. Chapter 266. Then Chu Luiyue quickly walked past Situ Xingqian and rushed to the young man. Hand it over. The young man was shocked by Chu Luiyue's actions and took a step back. What are you trying to do? I don't know what you're talking about. He pointed at the cauldron that had already toppled over and complained. You destroyed my pill. This young man was the other student from Taiyan Academy who chose to form the pill, Yang Jianqing. Not long after Situ Xingqian started forming the pill, he also reached this stage. When Chu Luiyue's dagger flew over, the pill's outline could already be seen in the cauldron. Now that it was suddenly destroyed, Yang Jianqing snapped out of his daze and glared at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. You know very well what I want. Do you want to take it yourself or do you want me to do it? Yang Jianqing was intimidated by her cold aura, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Chu Luiyue looked like a teenage girl, but she vaguely had an aura that made people dare not defy her. Yang Jianqing couldn't help but feel guilty when he was stared at by those obsidian-like eyes. He looked away and his voice drifted. I don't understand. Chu Luiyue. We were having a good competition but you just had to barge in at this time. I want to ask you, what right do you have? Chu Luiyue's expression turned cold and she was about to step forward. At this point, the surrounding crowd finally reacted. Cheng Han was the first to speak harshly. Chu Luiyue. How dare you? Where do you think this is? How dare you do this? Chu Luiyue sneered and turned around. Director Cheng Han, if it weren't for your academy's mistake, I wouldn't have come up so rashly. What did you say? Cheng Han furrowed his brows and became even angrier. Are you hinting that there's something wrong with Yang Jianqing? Chu Luiyue shrugged. No, I'm making it clear. Cheng Han choked and trembled with anger. Who did Chu Luiyue think he was? How dare he question Taiyan Academy in public? Not only did he destroy their students' pills, but he also slandered them. He knew that his eloquence was no match for Chu Luiyue's. Besides, with his status, arguing with Chu Luiyue in public would be a disgrace. He simply looked at Sun Zhongyan and shouted in a deep voice, Sun Zhongyan, these are the good students that your academy has taught. He was truly audacious, doing whatever he wanted. Do you think you can be so arrogant just because you got 2 first places? Sun Zhongyan was also shocked by Chu Luiyue's actions. However, he had always had a good impression of Chu Luiyue, so even if her actions were too sudden, he still felt that there must be a reason for it. Luiyue always knows her limits. She must have her reasons for doing this. Brother Cheng Han, it won't be too late for you to pursue this matter after she explains it clearly. Wasn't that right? Cheng Han gritted his teeth. Sun Zhongyan is extraordinarily protective of Chu Luiyue. Sun Zhongyan, the last round of the Qingjiao competition has been ruined by Chu Luiyue. After causing such a disaster, can you still pretend that nothing happened? Sun Zhongyan glanced at the situation, coughed and reminded Cheng Han. Brother Cheng Han, isn't the competition still ongoing? Luiyue went up and only knocked over Yang Jianqing's cauldron, stopping him from producing pills. The others are still fine. All right, and Situ Xingqian. Cheng Han was stunned. He turned his head to take a closer look and realized that it was indeed the case. Other than Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian, the others really didn't seem to be affected. On one hand, the venue was very big. To make it convenient for refining pills, every student occupied a large area by themselves, and the distance between them was not small. On the other hand, Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian were both Taiyan Academy students, and they were right next to each other. Hence, even though Situ Xingqian was greatly affected, the others who were further away were spared. Cheng Han's lips moved and he felt embarrassed and angry. In that case, this proves that Chu Luiyue did it on purpose. If not, why didn't she interrupt the other people in the competition? Why did she ruin our academy students? Moreover, the 2 of them were producing pills. Sun Zhongyan smiled. Brother Cheng Han, Luiyue clearly went for Yang Jianqing. Everyone can tell, and even Luiyue admitted it himself. As for Situ Xingqian, honestly speaking, it's more of her own fault that her pills were destroyed, right? Nanfeng Academy's Qi Yunfeng was also about to produce pills, and he was beside Yang Jianqing. The distance between the 2 of them was the same as the distance between Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian. Isn't he still fine? Fu Yunshan stroked his beard proudly. Yunfeng has always been a calm and steady child. Previously, when he saw Situ Xingqian and Yang Jianqing producing pills one after another, he was still worried. However, he didn't expect Chu Luiyue to appear out of nowhere. He actually defeated the 2 of them together. Now that the 2 families were fighting, he naturally wanted to watch the show and even add fuel to the fire. Just now, I saw that the fire in Situ Xingqian's cauldron was a little unstable. It seemed to be similar to the situation of our academy student. Lixue, what do you think? Cheng Lixue was feeling sad that his academy had lost a student who could compete for a ranking. When he heard Fu Yunshan's words, he immediately understood. That's right. The process of producing pills is very tiring. If one's abilities can't support it, the fire in the cauldron will extinguish at any time, resulting in failure. From what I see, Situ Xingqian's pills might not have been refined at all. Cheng Lixue, don't spout nonsense. Xingqian's pills were clearly about to be produced. If Chu Luiyue didn't interfere, why would it fail? Cheng Han immediately retorted, his face green. He's clearly doubting Situ Xingqian's abilities. Qing Lixue chuckled. Director Qing Han, as a celestial physician, shouldn't you know whether I'm spouting nonsense or not? The pills were about to be produced but they weren't. Who knows what the outcome will be until the last moment. If only we can take the chance to kick Situ Xingqian and Yang Jianqing out. How could Qing Han not know what Nanfeng Academy was up to? Hence, he didn't argue with them and looked at Sun Zhongyan again. No matter what, Chu Luiyue has to give an explanation for today's incident. If not, we won't participate in the Qing Jiao competition. The moment he said that, the crowd fell silent. They didn't expect Qing Han to use this to threaten them. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. They didn't get first place in the Warrior and Shen Master categories, so they were only left with this last bit of hope. If Yang Jianqing and Situ Xingqian didn't get a ranking because of this, they would really fail miserably. Sun Zhongyan looked at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look. Dean Qing Han, since you want to explain, then please listen carefully. Chu Luiyue raised his finger and pointed at Yang Jianqing. His gaze was cold and his words were like thunder. He has the red blood goo on him. Chapter 267. Once she said that, the entire square fell silent. Most of the people didn't know what red blood goo was, so they were all confused. However, those who had some understanding of the red blood goo were all filled with shock, so shocked that they were speechless. Yang Jianqing's pupils constricted. I hid it so well. How did Chu Luiyue see through it? Qing Han was also shocked when he heard that. He immediately said, impossible. Red blood goo is such an evil thing. How can Yang Jianqing have it? Chu Luiyue's lips curved up coldly. Whether it's possible or not, you'll know when you see it for yourself. Then she looked at Yang Jianqing again. Do you still want to deny it this time? Yang Jianqing made up his mind and planned to deny it. I don't have that kind of thing on me. Why should I admit it? Don't slander me. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. If I wasn't confident, do you think I'd do it? Yang Jianqing was stumped. Chu Luiyue picked up the dagger and played with it in her hands. If you know what's good for you, you'd better go down with me now and hand over the thing. Also, you have to explain clearly so that you won't affect the others' competition. Otherwise, she paused and looked up. Yang Jianqing shuddered. Even though Chu Luiyue didn't say anything else, her gaze was enough. Yang Jianqing didn't know what he was going to face next, but he knew very well that he couldn't handle Chu Luiyue's methods. He forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart and said, I'll go down with you for a check. Then he walked down the stage first. Chu Luiyue raised her brows and followed him. When the two of them reached the stage, the judges had already rushed over and stood at the side cautiously. The competition was still ongoing, but more people's gazes had already turned to this side. The atmosphere was tense. Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows. Elder son, what's red blood goo? This question was what the crowd wanted to ask. Sun Zhongyan patiently explained. So, even though this kind of poison is hard to find, it's extremely vicious. Once you come into contact with it, you'll definitely die. Emperor Jiawen's face became increasingly stern. Chu Luiyue chuckled and added, Your Majesty, there is one more thing that Elder Sun forgot to mention. If the red blood goo were to be roasted in the cauldron's flame, its toxicity would increase by several times and it would spread out. Once inhaled, even if it was a small amount, it could still endanger one's life. This shocked Emperor Jiawen, and the crowd's expressions changed. Are you serious? Chu Luiyue gently nodded. If you don't believe me, you can ask the other celestial physician. Emperor Jiawen looked at Qing Lixue and the rest. As expected, he saw that their faces had turned ugly after hearing red blood goo. Even if he didn't ask, he knew that Chu Luiyue wasn't lying. Emperor Jiawen leaned forward and anxiously asked, You mean that Yang Jianqing planned to do that just now? Chu Luiyue glanced at Yang Jianqing and saw that his expression was becoming more and more flustered. That's right. The crowd was in an uproar. If Yang Jianqing really did that, then wouldn't the people sitting here be affected? Just the thought of it made them tremble in fear. Qing Han saw that the situation was developing in an uncontrollable direction, so he anxiously stepped forward and angrily said, Chu Luiyue, don't spout nonsense. If Yang Jianqing really did that, why are you the only one who saw it? Why didn't the others notice it? Could it be that you're stronger than all the heavenly doctors here? Her words made sense and quite a few people looked at Chu Luiyue suspiciously. Chu Luiyue asked in return, Director Qing Han, may I ask if you've seen red blood goo before? Qing Han was dazed and he flung his sleeves. Of course, I haven't seen such a despicable and sinister thing. Chu Luiyue smiled. I've seen it before. Chu Xianmin, who was sitting in the crowd, tightly clutched the corner of her shirt. Her entire body was tense. Ever since Chu Luiyue said red blood goo, she had been uneasy, afraid that Chu Luiyue would implicate her. Now that she heard this, she was so nervous and afraid that she could not even breathe. If Chu Luiyue exposed her, she would be finished. To be honest, there is one person in our academy who has been poisoned by red blood goo. Chu Xianmin lowered her head, and her knuckles turned white. His name is Liao Zhongshu. Previously, he was poisoned for no reason and was on the verge of death a few times. The teachers in the academy can testify to this. Zuorong said in a low voice, "That's right. Liao Zhongshu was indeed poisoned by red blood goo, and he's still bedridden." Cheng Han looked as if he had heard a joke. "Oh? You said that if one was poisoned by red blood goo, he would die without a doubt and wouldn't even last a few days. How can your academy student be poisoned by red blood goo until now? Could it be that you all saw wrongly, or perhaps you all colluded to deceive me?" Zuorong and the other teachers' expressions were ugly. "Director Cheng Han, are you suspecting us? If you don't believe us, you can come to our academy. You can see if the poison in Liao Zhongshu's body is red blood goo. As a celestial physician, you can't not recognize this, right?" Cheng Han was speechless. It's all thanks to Luiyue that Liao Zhongshu can last until now. If she didn't come up with the prescription to temporarily suppress the poison in Liao Zhongshu's body, Liao Zhongshu wouldn't have survived. From Zuorong's point of view, Chu Luiyue could come up with such a shocking prescription, which was enough to prove many things. Thus, he was very confident in speaking up for Chu Luiyue. Ah, what a joke. Cheng Han was originally a little nervous, but he could not help but laugh when he heard this. This red blood goo is extremely sinister. Only a few celestial physicians here have seen it before, let alone the prescription to cure it. Who is Chu Luiyue? You actually dare to put this title on her head? I admit that she does have some talent as a martial artist and a mystic cultivator. However, don't you think it's ridiculous to say that she can suppress the red blood goo's poison? Sun Zhongyan also smiled and calmly interrupted him. You're right. She is Martial Uncle's disciple. Digression. Something happened at home yesterday and I couldn't open my eyes from crying. I barely managed to write 2 chapters. The remaining 3 chapters will be completed around 4 in the afternoon. After calculating, I owe 5 chapters, which is exactly 10,000. I'll make up for it in a few days. Myo mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 268. Dead Silence. Not only Cheng Han but everyone present was stunned as well. Elder Sun only had one uncle master, the current dean of Tianlu Academy, a 5th-grade celestial physician, Yi Zhiding. What did you say? Cheng Han's tongue seemed to be tied as he hesitantly spat out a sentence in disbelief. Sun Zhongyan smiled nonchalantly. I said Uncle Master only accepted one disciple in his entire life, and that was Lu Yu. However, Uncle Master always kept a low profile, so not many people knew about this. However, Uncle Master had already personally written Lu Yu's name on the Academy's register. Thus, this was an indisputable fact. Cheng Han was speechless for a long time. Since Sun Zhongyan dared to say this in public, it must be true. The people from Tianlu Academy were shocked as well. Did I hear wrongly? Chu Luiyue is actually the dean's disciple? Elder Sun said it himself. How can it be false? I was wondering why I couldn't find out who Chu Luiyue's teacher was. So, my goodness, didn't the dean say that accepting a disciple was the most troublesome? How did he suddenly become Chu Luiyue's master? The dean rarely comes out, so not many people know about this. I only want to know one thing now. Is Chu Luiyue also talented as a celestial physician? He did not finish his sentence, but everyone was well aware of it. They could even see the same expression in each other's eyes. Even Mu Hongyu and the rest were stunned for a while. Their expressions were strange. Sinhu, did you know about this? I didn't. Hongyu, you didn't know either? It seems like no one knew. Gu Mingfeng recalled what had happened in Wanling Mountain and laughed at himself. We're really slow on the uptake. She said that she only knew a little about it, but we actually believed her. They did not think so back then, but now that they thought about it, they felt that something was wrong. Chu Luiyue was too skillful in this aspect. How could she only know a little about it? Mu Hongyu's eyes gradually lit up. I have a feeling that the thigh we're hugging is even thicker than we imagined. Isn't Chu Luiyue a Xian cultivator? Fu Yunshan couldn't help but ask. Sun Zhongyan nodded. Of course, after she entered the academy, her main focus was indeed on being a mystic cultivator. However, this did not conflict with the fact that she was Martial Uncle's disciple. After all, she had gotten first place in the warrior tournament, hadn't she? Fu Yunshan opened his mouth but realized that Sun Zhongyan's words made sense. But why did it seem like something was wrong? How could there be such a person who took a celestial physician as his master, cultivated as a mystic cultivator, and even beat other martial artists who were of a higher level? This was too ridiculous. The others' reactions were similar to Fu Yunshan's. They had seen geniuses before. In reality, those who were able to enter these three great academies were all people with enviable talent. But compared to Chu Luiyue, it instantly paled in comparison. Emperor Jiawen finally couldn't help but ask, "Elder son, when did Elder Yi take in Chu Luiyue as his disciple? Why isn't there any news about this?" Even though Tianlu Academy was independent of the royal family, and even Emperor Jiawen had to be polite to it, Emperor Jiawen only found out today that Elder Yi had taken in a disciple. Hence, he naturally felt a little awkward. More importantly, this disciple was Chu Luiyue, who was once known as a good-for-nothing. Sun Zhongyan lowered his head slightly and explained, "Your Majesty, before Chu Luiyue entered Tianlu Academy, she already knew Martial Uncle and became his disciple." The crowd was even more shocked. Could it be that Chu Luiyue's Yuan Meridian recovered and became a genius because of Elder Yi? If that's the case, everything makes sense. However, Emperor Jiawen didn't continue asking about this. He just looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated gaze. After a while he said, "Luyu, you're very outstanding now. Back then, who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would become like this? She's a genius, and she's not an ordinary genius." The Chu Xianmin back then wasn't even half of what Chu Luiyue was now. He couldn't help but recall Rong Jin's expression when he mentioned Chu Luiyue. Of course he could guess Rong Jin's thoughts. Back then, breaking off the engagement with Chu Luiyue was probably the decision he regretted the most. However, this matter was in the past, so it wasn't appropriate to mention it now. Chu Luiyue bent her knees and bowed. "Your Majesty, you flatter me." Emperor Jiawen shook his head and smiled. "No, you deserve it." The Empress was upset as she watched from the side. From the past until now, she had never liked Chu Luiyue. In the past, it was because Chu Luiyue was a good-for-nothing and wasn't good enough for Rong Jin. Even though she had become a prodigy now, one could tell that she was a ruthless character based on how Chu Luiyue treated the Chu family. If they really allowed Rong Jin to marry Chu Luiyue again, they definitely wouldn't have a good life. They had to stop it no matter what. Cheng Han spent a lot of effort to accept this matter. However, he still felt exceptionally upset, as if something was blocking his heart. He felt aggrieved and angry. But why didn't Chu Luiyue participate in the Celestial Physician competition? Chu Luiyue lazily said, "I didn't. Because I didn't want to." The crowd was speechless. Over the years, many students yearned for the Qingjiao competition, and the Celestial Physician competition was even more so. However, when it came to Chu Luiyue, why did it seem like it didn't matter? Cheng Han sneered and said, "You didn't want to. You didn't want to? Is it because you don't have the right?" Just as he finished his sentence, he noticed the strange gazes that the crowd was giving him, and he immediately regretted it. Who was Yi Zhiding? He was one of the most outstanding celestial physicians in the past few decades. To be able to catch his eye, he was definitely not a mediocre person. Yet he actually openly doubted Chu Luiyue here. Wasn't that equivalent to doubting Yi Zhiding? The key was that he wasn't Yi Zhiding's match at all, so it was especially laughable for him to say this. Chu Luiyue shrugged nonchalantly. "I'll answer this question later, but it's better to solve Yang Jianqing's problem now. Now, everyone should have no more doubts about what I said just now, right?" Cheng Han decided to go all out. "All right. As long as you show me the evidence, you can do whatever you want with it." "Thank you, Director Cheng Han. I hope you can remember what you said now later." Chu Luiyue followed his advice and finally looked at Yang Jianqing, who was already drenched in cold sweat. Yang Jianqing suddenly stretched out his hands and gritted his teeth. "You can check however you want. If I say there's nothing, there's nothing." Chu Luiyue's gaze lightly swept past his hands. It was very clean. As if he was afraid that Chu Luiyue wouldn't believe him, and also as if he wanted to prove himself, Yang Jianqing directly took off his outerwear and loudly said, "I don't have anywhere to hide anything on me. Is it clear enough now?" As he was a little anxious, he even tore his outerwear in a hurry. Coupled with his flushed face and messy hair, he looked especially disheveled. Chu Luiyue paused, and the corners of his lips slowly curled up. "Did I say that I was going to search your body?" Chapter 269. Yang Jianqing was dumbfounded. You tricked me?" His expression became a little ferocious, as if he was about to rush up and fight Chu Luiyue to the death. He had made such a scene in front of so many people. He had lost all his face, and Chu Luiyue actually said such a sentence? I only asked you to hand over the red blood goo. I didn't search your body, and I didn't ask you to take off your clothes. You. Yang Jianqing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. With great difficulty, he finally found his last shred of reason and said sternly, no matter what, I have already proved to everyone that I don't have the red blood goo on me. You slandered me like this. I won't let this matter go. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. You don't have it on you, but does that prove that you didn't bring it? Yang Jianqing was stunned. What do you mean? Chu Luiyue pointed at the overturned cauldron on the arena. We will know soon whether you have anything to do with the red blood goo. As she spoke, she walked towards the cauldron again. Yang Jianqing's heart was empty. No. He ran in front of Chu Luiyue without thinking and stopped her. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Why not? I just want to check the cauldron. If you didn't do anything, why are you so nervous? Yang Jianqing panicked even more when he was exposed. He wanted to continue stopping Chu Luiyue, but there were already many people looking at him suspiciously. He also realized that doing so would only make him look even stranger. His legs were trembling. He didn't dare to step back, but he also didn't dare to step forward. He muttered, No, no. Seeing his reaction, everyone also felt that something was wrong. Cheng Han felt a sense of unease. This scene was all too familiar. It seemed to be the same when Chu Luiyue exposed Heng Jingshua. Chu Luiyue looked at Yang Jianqing mockingly. Did he think he could stop her? With a slight movement of her feet, her figure flashed and she silently bypassed Yang Jianqing. He quickly rushed towards the arena. In a blink of an eye, she already walked to the side of the medicinal cauldron. She bent down and gently scraped the edge of the cauldron with the dagger in her hand. A ball of red powder appeared on the shiny dagger. Under the illumination of the sun, it flickered with a cold and strange light. Yang Jianqing's face paled. His movements were so subtle that even the celestial physician present did not notice it. How did Chu Luiyue discover it? This is red blood goo. Chu Luiyue carefully examined the crimson powder on the dagger. If I'm not wrong, you put this thing in when you put the red root into the cauldron to refine it, right? The crimson root burned in the cauldron and soon turned into red powder, mixing with the red blood goo and making it difficult to distinguish. Moreover, the high temperature would also cause this thing to automatically scatter on the inner walls of the medicinal cauldron, making it even more undetectable from the outside. If the burning time is sufficient, for example when you finish refining the pill, this period of time is enough for these red blood goo to completely burn and scatter. Chu Luiyue's tone was calm, as if she was talking about something unimportant. However, the contents of her words set off a huge wave in everyone's hearts. Yang Jianqing. Is what Luyu said true? Sun Zhongyan asked sternly. If this was true, then Yang Jianqing was preparing to make a move on everyone here. The severity of this matter was far greater than Huan Jingshua's. Yang Jianqing's lips trembled as he spat out a sentence with great difficulty. That's not red blood goo. It's not? Then why don't you try it yourself? Chu Luiyue suggested. Yang Jianqing immediately took a few steps back. Oh. And? Didn't you say that this is not red blood goo? Why are you so afraid? Since so many people here have not seen this thing before, why don't you open everyone's eyes? With that, Chu Luiyue's gaze turned sharp as he flung that dagger out. That dagger drew a bright and straight line in the air as it flew towards Yang Jianqing. Yang Jianqing immediately wanted to dodge, but how could he be Chu Luiyue's opponent? Before he could run a few steps, that dagger directly pierced his calf. Yang Jianqing cried out in pain as he staggered and knelt on the ground. His calf was already bleeding profusely. Chu Luiyue, how dare you? Cheng Han was about to make a move but was stopped by Sun Zhongyan without batting an eyelid. Brother Cheng Han, Yang Jianqing has already said that it's not red blood goo. Why are you so anxious? Don't worry, Liu knows his limits. The wound on his calf is not fatal. Our academy will provide the medicinal herbs for this wound. If that really isn't red blood goo, I will personally apologize. At this point, Cheng Han had no other choice. Quick look. His leg. It was unknown who suddenly shouted this. Cheng Han took a closer look and was shocked. Yang Jianqing's calf was rapidly swelling. Moreover, the blood flowing out of the wound was gradually turning into a strange black color. The aura on his body quickly withered. If there was nothing wrong with that thing and it was just a simple dagger piercing through his calf, this situation would definitely not have happened. Sun Zhongyan sneered. Brother Cheng Han, as a celestial physician, You should know better than me whether this is red blood goo or not, right? Qing Han was speechless. He only felt that his face was being ripped off and ruthlessly trampled on. Yang Jianqing's entire body trembled like a sieve. He was extremely frightened. Chu Liyue's dagger just now was contaminated with too much red blood goo. So much weight, and now all of it was on his body. Moreover, it had directly seeped into his body from the wound and spread extremely quickly. He hugged his leg and finally could not continue pretending. He began to plead in horror. No. I don't want to die. Ding. Elders, save me. I don't want to die. At this point, what else did he not understand? He crawled towards Taiyan Academy with tears and mucus flowing down his face. He was covered in blood and looked extremely pathetic. Stop him. Qing Han was almost screaming at the top of his lungs. The judges immediately took action. A rope flew out and tightly bound Yang Jianqing. Chu Liyue walked towards him. Luyu, be careful. Sun Zhongyan reminded him. Chu Liyue did not stop walking. Don't worry, Elder Sunday. I just have some things that I want to ask him. As she spoke, she was already in front of Yang Jianqing. She looked at him condescendingly and enunciated each word clearly. Who sent you? Yang Jianqing sobbed. He did not dare to look at her or speak. Chu Liyue inched closer, and her voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. If you tell me, I can help you detoxify. Yang Jianqing was stunned. Otherwise, how do you think Liao Zhongshu survived until now? Chu Liyue said softly. A hint of struggle flashed across Yang Jianqing's eyes. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Yang Jianqing clearly knew more than Chu Xianmin. If he was willing to talk, Yang Jianqing opened his mouth as if he wanted to speak, but he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Liyue knew that something was wrong and immediately retreated. A terrifying force suddenly surged out of Yang Jianqing's body. Boom. Digression. There was good news, my swollen eyes have recovered. There was also bad news, it's about 5 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 270. A ball of fire suddenly exploded from Yang Jianqing's body. Along with this terrifying explosion, his body also completely exploded. The fire quickly swallowed the blood and flesh that splattered everywhere. Chu Liyue immediately used her crystal barrier to block that terrifying power. Everything happened too quickly. By the time everyone realized what had happened, Yang Jianqing's body had already been completely destroyed by that ball of fire. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. Damn it. Chu Liyue cursed under her breath. She had been worried that such a situation would happen, so she specially came forward to ask, but she did not expect that. The last ball of fire quickly dissipated as well. There was nothing left on the ground except for a small patch of burn marks. Many people in the crowd sucked in a cold breath. In less than 5 minutes, not only was Yang Jianqing exposed for using the red blood goo, but he also self-destructed and died. Not even his corpse was left behind. This time his crime was completely confirmed, but there was no way to prove his innocence. Chu Liyue looked around. That cold and obscure aura did not appear again. However, she had a feeling that Yang Jianqing was definitely related to that person. Whether it was the red blood goo he brought or his self-destruction, it was obvious that someone had manipulated him. She had seen clearly that Yang Jianqing did not want to die. If she had more time, she might have been able to get something useful out of him. However, the other party was too powerful and did not leave any chance for her to do so. Yang Jianqing's life was directly ended. The square fell into a long, eerie silence. After a while, Sun Zhongyan said, accidents happened frequently in this Qingjiao competition. It was our negligence. However, Din Qinghan, shouldn't you explain yourself? First it was Heng Jingchua, then it was Yang Jianqing. What exactly happened? If the red blood goo was not discovered, all of us here today would have suffered. Din Qinghan, can you bear this responsibility? There were at least tens of thousands of people in the square. There were also many powerful people and geniuses from the 3 major academies. There was also the royal family of country Yaochen. If anything happened to these people, it would be unimaginable. Aye. Qinghan was also panicking. One Heng Jingchua wasn't enough, now there was another Yang Jianqing. There was no way he could clear his name no matter how hard he tried. I really don't know. Fu Yunshan laughed perfunctorily. You're the dean. Now that something like this has happened, you think you can just say, I don't know, and let it go? Qinghan almost choked. He felt that he was at odds with country Yaochen. Nothing good happened every time he came. Qinghan took a deep breath in and bowed to Emperor Jiawen. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I won't shirk away from this matter. After the Qing Jiao competition ends, I'll investigate this matter together with Heng Jingshua's matter. If I discover any problems, I will definitely not tolerate it. Emperor Jiawen also took this matter to heart. But since Cheng Han had already said so, he couldn't continue to be aggressive, so he could only raise his hand. We know Dean Cheng Han's character. He definitely wouldn't allow his students to do such a thing. Now that the Qing Jiao competition has yet to end, let's wait until everything is settled before we discuss this matter. Since the person with the highest status had spoken, everyone naturally wouldn't harp on it. Sun Zhongyan took a deep look at Cheng Han. Your Majesty is magnanimous, but we definitely can't put this matter aside. Dean Cheng Han will wait for you to give us a satisfactory answer. Fu Yunshan also agreed. That's right. We have plenty of time and patience. This matter has serious implications and we can't just sit back and do nothing. If not, we won't even know when we'll die. Cheng Han felt very aggrieved, but he could only agree like this. Since this matter has temporarily come to an end, we should talk about my matter next, right? Situ Xingqian, who had been silent at the side, finally spoke. At this point, the way she looked at Chu Luiyue was different from before. She didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be Yi Zhiding's disciple. Master had always been regretful about losing to Yi Zhiding, and he had mentioned it a few times in the past few years. Of course, she knew how powerful Yi Zhiding was, so she felt even more uncomfortable about this matter. She really didn't understand how Chu Luiyue was chosen by Yi Zhiding. Chu Luiyue met Situ Xingqian's gaze openly. Sure. Even though I wasn't targeting you when I attacked back then, and I could also ensure that no extra force would affect you, I'll compensate you since your pill formation was interrupted because of this. Situ Xingqian's expression was a little strange. Compensate? You destroyed a pill that I was about to complete. How are you going to compensate me? Chu Luiyue lifted his chin. Don't you have another set of herbs beside you? Situ Xingqian's expression changed slightly. You want me to refine it again? Not to mention that I don't have enough time now. Even if I do, I don't have that much strength. When I formed the pill previously, I already felt that my strength was about to be depleted. I definitely can't try again now. Chu Luiyue blinked. No. I said that I'll compensate you, so I'll naturally do it. What? Situ Xingqian didn't understand at that moment. Chu Luiyue explained. I'm saying that I'll replace you to refine the pill for the second time. After the pill is refined, it'll be considered your result. How about that? At this moment, not only Situ Xingqian, but even the other people's expressions became very strange. Chu Luiyue's suggestion doesn't seem to have any problems, but there seems to be something wrong. Situ Xingqian was so angry that she laughed. This is the compensation you're talking about? Chu Luiyue nodded. Yeah. What? You think it's not enough? Situ Xingqian was speechless. How confident is Chu Luiyue to think that he can use such a method to compensate me? I started memorizing prescriptions since I was 4 years old and had been cultivating diligently for many years. I can only barely form pills now. Chu Luiyue shouldn't have been Yi Zhiding's disciple for too long. I wonder if he's already a stage 2 doctor. With such standards, he wants to refine pills for me? What a joke. Situ Xingqian suppressed the mockery and disdain in her heart and calmly said, That means that no matter what grade you refine, it'll be considered my result? I'd like to ask, but your current celestial physician grade is? Chu Luiyue could tell that she didn't think much of it, but he didn't care and smiled. It's hard to say my grade, but you'll naturally know later. This is the only solution now. If you don't agree, I can't do anything about it. Situ Xingqian sneered in her heart. I want to see how Chu Luiyue will have the cheek to say that it's my result after I refine a pile of trash. Digression. The weather was bleak and the temperature difference was more than 20 degrees. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 271. Chu Luiyue walked to the competition venue and stood at Situ Xingqian's previous position. Situ Xingqian failed to produce the pill, and only a handful of black ash was left in the cauldron. Chu Luiyue picked up the prescription and looked at it before cleaning the cauldron. Situ Xingqian coldly watched from the side. Countless pairs of eyes below the competition venue also gathered on Chu Luiyue. They were curious, doubtful, and excited. Isn't Chu Luiyue too confident of herself? She actually went up personally? She's Elder Ye's disciple. She should be quite capable, right? Didn't they say that even though she passed all 3 examinations when she entered Tianlu Academy, she was the worst in the Celestial Physician examination? If she didn't produce anything, it would be too embarrassing. The crowd discussed fervently. Chu Luiyue acted as if she didn't hear anything as she gently placed her slender hand on the cauldron. Immediately after, a cluster of crimson-red flames abruptly sprang up within the medicinal cauldron. Chu Luiyue casually picked up an ingredient at the side. It was a reddish-brown fruit the size of a fist, sky cashew. When Chu Luiyue placed it into the fire rapidly surrounded it. The skin of the sky cashew quickly shrank. Situ Xingqian stood closer so she could see it more clearly. When she saw Chu Luiyue actually put the sky cashew into the cauldron to refine it, disdain flashed across her heart. The sky cashew was extremely fragile and soft, especially the mature ones. A light touch might even break through its skin. All of its medicinal effects were stored in the juice inside, so when refining it, one had to carefully draw out the juice inside. But the most important thing was that once the sky cashew's juice flowed out and came into contact with the air, the medicinal effects would quickly disappear. Hence, when using the sky cashew, the celestial physician would usually leave it for last. This way they could preserve its effects to the greatest extent. After Chu Luiyue went up, the first thing she refined was the sky cashew. It seems like she's really ignorant. I really don't know how Yi Zhiding teaches his only disciple. Chu Luiyue's actions clearly attracted the other celestial physician's attention. Elder Emotsang couldn't help but laugh. She's indeed Elder Ye's disciple. She's really unique and actually put the sky cashew in first. Even I can't compare to her courage. Elder's expression expressionless as he calmly said, "It's not too late to comment after the results. When the results are out." Ah, that's right. There was only one set of herbs here. If the sky cashew was destroyed, then it would naturally be over. Elder mocked him. "I didn't expect you." Of course, I didn't expect her to not know such basic knowledge. Gluzsss. Even, of Chu of Chen. Of his. Of him of his of his of him. On. Elder Emotsang choked and shut his mouth with an ugly expression. Cheng Lishua didn't even have the time to care about the two of them as he watched the competition nervously. Now Nanfeng Academy only had one seedling left, Lung Chuan. He's at the crucial moment of pill formation. Only Situ Xingqian was left on Tai Yan Academy's side, and she was replaced by Chu Luiyue. There was basically no hope. Tianlu Academy's Ji Zixing was the slowest among them. He had only just started his attempt, so his skills were limited. As long as Lung Chuan succeeded, he could basically take first place. Zuorong and the rest were also watching nervously. Why did Lu Yu put the sky cashew in first? They couldn't figure it out either. If he failed then, wait. It's been a while. Why isn't the sky cashew broken yet? Zuorong frowned and mumbled. According to the sky cashew's characteristics, it should break apart on its own after being placed in the fire. But until now, the sky cashew in Chu Luiyue's cauldron was still fine. Even though its surface had shrunk into a small ball, it was still intact. Suddenly, an idea popped up in his mind. Could it be that Lu Yu is planning to refine the sky cashew like this? The surrounding celestial physician teachers looked at him strangely, clearly not understanding what he meant. Zuorong suppressed his excitement and said, "What I mean is that she seems to be planning to extract all the juice inside before drawing it out." "How's that possible?" A teacher at the side immediately retorted. "The ripe sky cashew is extremely fragile and can't withstand the roasting of the fire. Unless she can control the fire to a certain extent, she can extract the juice without causing it to break. But that requires too much control. It's impossible." At this point, the few of them suddenly fell silent. Chu Luiyue seems to have done it. The perfectly intact sky cashew is the best proof. Zuorong couldn't help but look up at Chu Luiyue, only to see her calm expression as she started to put in the second ingredient. The sky cashew quietly floated in the fire. Chu Luiyue indeed has such an idea. Zuorong swallowed his saliva with much difficulty. Even I might not be able to do this. This is because the requirement for an alchemist's talent is too high. Extracting the sky cashew isn't a difficult task, but to be able to do it so meticulously, it means that one must have sharp senses and control. Even though his level was higher than Chu Luiyue's and he was more capable, he believed that he might not be able to do it as well as Chu Luiyue. This is probably the aura of a celestial physician that the director mentioned before. Someone softly muttered. This level of talent can only be a gift from the heavens. It can't be obtained even if one begged for it. I finally know why the director was willing to take her in as his disciple. Zuorong bitterly laughed. This girl is even stronger than I imagined. He thought that he had already thought highly of Chu Luiyue, but he didn't expect that he still underestimated her. It's no wonder she's so calm. Even if she just started to cultivate as a celestial physician, it's destined that her future achievements will far surpass ours. Situ Xingqian's talent is not bad, but it's a pity that she can't compare to Lu Yu. This is a good thing. That old fellow, Qing Han, is very arrogant, and he's even more so after taking Situ Xingqian in as his disciple. Think about it. Every time we talk about Situ Xingqian and the celestial physician competition these few days, he looks like he's going to win. Isn't it because he thinks that Situ Xingqian's talent is unparalleled? I just don't know if Lu Yu can produce pills. She just started cultivating not long ago, right? Even though she's talented, she can't do it without enough force to support her. Zhuorong listened to the few of them talk and couldn't help but smile delightedly. So what? If we can see it, I don't believe that Qing Han can't see it. If Lu Yu can replace Situ Xingqian to refine medicine, they'll be letting them off easy. Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 272. Countless herbs gradually condensed into a ball in the crimson flame, and the outline of the pill was already formed. That was indeed a movement that would only occur when the pill was about to be formed. Cheng Lishue scanned the people around Chu Luiyue in shock. Because of his shock, his figure also became a little sharp. When did she finish processing all those herbs? Didn't Chu Luiyue just go up not long ago? They were only distracted for a while, but she had already reached this step. Not only Cheng Lishue but everyone who was watching Chu Luiyue refine the pill was also in disbelief. I kept watching Chu Luiyue refine the pill just now, and I felt that she didn't do anything. So, she has already finished processing all those herbs? That's too fast. With this speed, can she be considered in the top 3 of today's competition? I think it's not impossible for her to be first. Did you notice that Chu Luiyue directly put the formula back after taking a look at it on the stage and didn't look at it again afterward? She actually memorized the formula directly, with just one look. Having a photographic memory is nothing. The key is that she didn't even stop in the middle and kept throwing herbs into the cauldron without any hesitation or mistakes. That's why she's so fast. Emote Song was also shocked when he saw that. However, as an elder of Tai Yen Academy, he did not have a good impression of Chu Luiyue, so he immediately sneered. So what if she's fast? Previously there were also people who tried to form the pill very quickly, but didn't they also fail in the end? Elder Feng Yi stared fixedly at the pill condensed in Chu Luiyue's cauldron, and he was very nervous. When he heard Emote Song he could not help but retort. Regardless of whether she can form the pill in the end, it's already enough to prove her talent. Emote Song's expression turned even colder, but he did not know how to retort. He could only snort with disdain in his eyes. Previously Elder Feng Yi really did not have high hopes for Chu Luiyue, but now, his gaze shifted slightly and it landed on Chu Luiyue's face. Even in such a tense moment, the beautiful girl still had a calm and collected expression on her face. She had done something that others thought was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but she didn't seem to care about it. The dean seemed to have taken in an amazing disciple. In the arena some people succeeded while others failed. Those who succeeded had already sent their medicines to be evaluated, while those who failed had already left the stage. However, among these people no one was able to refine any more pills. The best ones were only 2 upper-level 3 pills. Obviously these people were no threat to Leng Chuan. Gradually only Chu Luiyue and Ji Zixing were left on the field. Not long after Chu Luiyue, Ji Zixing also finally began to try to form the pill. In other words, other than Leng Chuan from Nanfeng Academy who had refined a 4th-grade medicinal pill, only Chu Luiyue and Ji Zixing had the same hope. However, these 2 people were both from Tianlu Academy. Elder Feng Yi leaned against the chair with a smile and said in a seemingly unintentional manner, he casually said, even though Zixing is a little slow, he's still considered reliable. He's not like Lu Yu. He's just a little impatient. Cheng Lishue knew that the only thing he could do now was wait, so he sat in his seat and didn't say a word. He could only hope that Chu Luiyue and Ji Zixing would both fail. This way Leng Chuan would be able to completely take first place. Elder Feng Yi glanced at Emote Song and lightly knocked his head. Look at me. I almost forgot that Lu Yu is now representing Situ Xingqian in the competition. No matter who wins or loses, it's still Tai Yen Academies. Emote Song, don't take my words of criticism to heart. Emote Song took a deep breath. If it weren't for so many people watching, I would have already taken action. Feng Yi looks like an honest person, but he's actually very evil. Everyone could tell that this celestial physician competition had nothing to do with Tai Yen Academy anymore. If Chu Luiyue loses, it means that Situ Xingqian loses. If Chu Luiyue wins, it means that she wins. It would embarrass Taiyan Academy even more. At this point, Mo Tsang started to regret it. Why did I agree to let Chu Luiyue represent Situ Xingqian in the competition? Situ Xingqian also realized that something was amiss. From the moment Chu Luiyue started trying to form the pill, she was silently waiting for Chu Luiyue to fail. But what disappointed her was that Chu Luiyue had been doing it in an orderly manner. Even though this depleted most of Chu Luiyue's energy and made her look a little pale, the fire in the cauldron didn't have any signs of being extinguished. Seeing that the pill in the cauldron was becoming rounder and rounder, Situ Xingqian's heart was in her mouth. If Chu Luiyue really forms the pill, Chu Luiyue focused on the cauldron in front of her and carefully controlled the changes in the fire in front of her. This time she was determined to give it her all. This wasn't to compensate Situ Xingqian but because of other considerations. Previously, she had been hiding her talent and abilities as a celestial physician because she didn't want to expose too much and attract more trouble. However, it was obvious that even if she didn't look for trouble, trouble would come knocking on her door. From Chu Xianmin to Heng Jingchua to Yang Jianqing, everything exuded a strange aura. She had a strange premonition in her heart. The same person seemed to be controlling all these things behind the scenes. The other party was obviously targeting her. Chu Luiyue thought about it but couldn't figure out who would spend so much effort to deal with her. There were very few people who had such means. Therefore, instead of hiding, it would be better to reveal everything. Luring the snake out of its hole. She was in the light and the other party was in the dark. She was already at a disadvantage. However, if she stood under the brightest sunlight, no shadow could hide from her. She looked at the pill in the fire. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that the force in her body had become much more abundant after she broke through to become a stage 2 warrior. Even the effects were better when she refined medicine. This was the reason why she was able to process all the herbs faster than expected and start to form the pill. However, it seemed like she took a long time to form the pill this time. Boom! Waves of energy exploded in Ji Zixing's cauldron. A round medicinal pill shockingly took shape. At the same time, a strong medicinal fragrance spread. The stone in Tianlu Academy's hearts finally landed. Ji Zixing placed the pill into a jade box and presented it to Yang Kai. Elder Feng Yi opened the jade box and couldn't help but glance at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue clearly started forming the pill earlier than Ji Zixing. Why isn't she done yet? Mo Tsang sneered. I thought she was very capable. You're just putting on an act. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 273. Mo Tsang, isn't it inappropriate for you to say that? Luiyue is now competing on behalf of your academy. Do you want your academy to lose if you say that she's putting on an act? Elder Feng Yi replied indifferently. Mo Tsang was exasperated. Elder Feng Yi retracted his gaze and looked at the elixir in the jade box. 4 lines were clearly visible. However, the 4th line was the same as Leng Chuan's. It was a little faint. Elder Feng Yi pondered for a moment. 4th grade lower. Ji Zixing's expression was very calm. He naturally knew the grade of the elixir. He refined himself. Cheng Lixue, who was next to him, hurriedly took the elixir and looked at it carefully. He frowned and said reluctantly, 4th grade lower. Mo Tsang only glanced at it symbolically. He didn't say much and gave the same judgment. Elder Feng Yi nodded at Ji Zixing. It's the first time you've seen the formula. It's not bad to be able to successfully refine it. You seem to have made progress recently. Ji Zixing cupped his hands respectfully. You flatter me, Elder. I still have many shortcomings. He had always felt that he wasn't smart enough. Out of all the people present who had received this superior prescription, he was probably the slowest. He had spent a full hour studying the prescription, and he was also the last to attempt to form the pill. Even Chu Luiyue, who came on halfway, caught up and was faster than him. Although he succeeded, he still seemed a little clumsy compared to the others. You have your merits. You don't have to be so modest. Seeing that Ji Zixing didn't become arrogant because of the success of this competition, Elder Feng Yi was very satisfied. 4 heavenly doctors. Temperament was also an extremely important part of their talent. Go and rest first. You'll be fine after Luiyue is done. Yes. Chu Luiyue was the only one left in the arena. Everyone's eyes were focused on her. Anticipation, doubt, sarcasm. Chu Luiyue ignored them and remained patient. In order to conserve origin force, she controlled the flames in the medicine cauldron to reduce a little and gathered the rest in one place. In this way she could hold on for a longer time. However, as time passed, the others gradually became anxious and suspicious. Why hasn't Chu Luiyue finished yet? Previously she said she was fast. Now that Ji Zixing has already finished for quite a while, there's still no progress on that medicinal pill of hers. Could it be that there's some problem? I think it's most likely going to fail. Think about it, Leng Chuan and Ji Zixing who successfully refined medicinal pills, which one of them is like her, taking so long to form the pill? I think so too. In the end her standard is still not enough. Even if she's old man Ye's disciple, she doesn't seem to have cultivated for too long, right? Everyone from Sky Foothill Academy felt very complicated. On one hand, Ji Zixing forming the pill, at least he had the strength to compete, which was worth being happy about. But on the other hand, Chu Luiyue's failure to succeed after so long also made them somewhat worried. Situ Xingqian stood at the side of the arena. Every second really felt like a year. Looking at Chu Luiyue standing in her position to refine medicine, she had an indescribable awkwardness in her heart. Previously she was filled with anger, only feeling that Chu Luiyue blocked her path to winning first place. Under impulse, she even agreed to let Chu Luiyue replace her to participate in the competition. But after she gradually calmed down, she realized that doing so did not seem to have any benefits for her. Seeing that Chu Luiyue still did not move, she finally took a step forward. Chu Luiyue, I've thought about it for a long time and still feel that it's not suitable for you to replace me in the competition. Her voice was gentle and sweet, her tone extremely sincere. Her slightly furrowed brows were even more pitiful. I believe that you definitely did not deliberately interrupt me forming the pill previously. So if I continue to bicker with you like this, it's also unfair to you. Don't worry, even if you can't refine the pill, I won't blame you. Boom. In the medicine cauldron in front of Chu Luiyue, flames suddenly rose. At the same time, a powerful wave of energy crashed heavily onto the medicine cauldron. Boom. An indescribably rich medicinal fragrance spread out. Chu Luiyue stretched out her wrist and the pill automatically fell into her hand. Whoosh. She quickly placed the elixir into the jade box at the side. Her actions were as smooth as flowing water. It was only when Chu Luiyue closed the lid of the jade box with a clack that everyone realized what had happened. Chu Luiyue had actually succeeded. Situ Xingqian was stunned on the spot. All the blood in his body seemed to have frozen and he was completely stunned. Only then did Chu Luiyue look at her. What did you say just now? Situ Xingqian opened her mouth, but she couldn't spit out a single word. She was still in the midst of a huge shock and couldn't recover from it. Chu Luiyue tilted her head and asked again. The corners of Situ Xingqian's mouth twitched. She wanted to use her usual smile to cover up her current embarrassment, but she found that her face seemed to be wearing a thick mask. She couldn't move at all, and even the corners of her mouth became incomparably heavy. Chu Luiyue had actually succeeded. How could she smile like this? And nothing. Situ Xingqian was extremely vexed. Why did she say those words just now? Now it seemed that she was extremely stupid. Chu Luiyue shrugged her shoulders and raised the corners of her lips nonchalantly. She didn't continue to pursue the matter and walked towards Elder Feng Yi and the other two elders. She stood in front of the three of them and handed over the jade box in her hand. I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long, seniors, Chu Luiyue said very politely. Elder Feng Yi laughed heartily. Not long, not long. Originally, there was no rigid time limit for the Heaven Doctors competition. Furthermore, you've successfully refined the elixir. As he spoke, he nervously and curiously opened the jade box. An elixir appeared in front of him. The moment he saw the elixir, Elder Feng Yi's eyes widened abruptly. This? He almost couldn't wait to pick up the elixir and study it carefully. It took him a while to suppress the excitement in his heart. This is the 4th grade, medium. What? Cheng Lixue and Mo Tsang, who were at the side, were originally very unhappy, so they had been sitting in their chairs and didn't take a closer look. Hearing Elder Feng Yi's words, the two of them spoke in unison. Feng Yi, don't tell me you're deliberately overestimating her just because she's a student of your academy? Mo Tsang blurted out. Elder Feng Yi waved his hand. Take a look for yourself. Won't you know? Mo Tsang took the elixir suspiciously, then his expression changed. Cheng Lixue sensed that something was wrong and came over. On the surface of the elixir there were 4 lines. But the most important thing was that the 4th line was obviously clearer than Leng Chuan's and Ji Zixing's. This was indeed the 4th grade. Elder Feng Yi laughed. Now you won't object, right? The two of them fell silent. Elder Feng Yi raised his voice, his eyes shining with pride. Luiyue, congratulations. The final evaluation of this elixir, 4th grade, medium, This is the highest grade elixir that has appeared in today's competition. It is undoubtedly the first. Chu Luiyue looked at Situ Xingqian with a smile. Congratulations, Princess Situ Xingqian. Digression, let's have a meal. The 5th grade is estimated to be a little late. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 274. Emote Song, don't you think it's inappropriate for you to say that? Lu Yu is competing for your academy now. You say she's just putting on an act. Do you want your academy to lose? Elder Feng Yi replied indifferently. Emote Song was furious. Elder Feng Yi had already retracted his gaze and looked at the pill in the jade box. The 4 lines were clearly visible. However, the 4th line was the same as Leng Chuan's. It was a little faint. Elder Feng Yi thought for a moment. 4th grade lower. Ji Zixing's expression was very calm. He naturally knew what grade the medicinal pills that he refined himself were. Cheng Lixue, who was next to him, quickly took the pill and looked carefully. He frowned and said reluctantly. 4th grade lower. Emote Song only glanced at it symbolically. He didn't say much and gave the same judgment. Elder Feng Yi nodded at Ji Zixing. It's your first time seeing the prescription. You're very good to be able to successfully refine it. You seem to have improved recently. Ji Zixing cupped his hands respectfully. Elder, you flatter me. I still have many shortcomings. In fact, he always felt that he wasn't smart enough. Out of all the people present who had taken the advanced prescription, he was probably the slowest. He had spent a full hour studying the prescription, and he was also the last to attempt to form the pill. Even Chu Luiyue, who went up halfway, caught up with him and was faster than him. Although he succeeded in refining the pill, he was still clumsy compared to the others. You have your own merits. You don't have to be too modest. Seeing that Ji Zixing didn't become arrogant because of his success in this competition, Elder Feng Yi was very satisfied. For a celestial physician, temperament was also an extremely important part of talent. Go and rest first. You can wait for Lu Yu to finish. Yes. Only Chu Luiyue was left in the arena. All eyes were focused on her. Anticipation, suspicion, and sarcasm. Chu Luiyue ignored them and was still very patient. However, in order to save force, she reduced the flame in the medicine cauldron and gathered the rest in one place. This way she would be able to last longer. However, as time passed, the others gradually became anxious and suspicious. Why isn't Chu Luiyue over yet? Previously I said that she was fast, but now Ji Zixing has already completed it for a long time, and she still hasn't made any progress with her pill. Could there be a problem? I think it's most likely going to fail. Think about it. Among Leng Chuan and Ji Zixing who successfully concocted medicinal pills, which one of them took as long as her? I think so too. In the end, her level is still not high enough. Even if she is old Ye's disciple, it doesn't seem like she has been cultivating for too long, right? Everyone from Tianlu Academy had mixed feelings. On one hand, Ji Zixing's success meant that he had at least a fighting chance. This was something to be happy about. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue's lack of success also worried them. Situ Xingqian stood by the side of the competition venue, and every second felt like a year. When she saw Chu Luiyue standing in her spot and concocting the pill, she felt inexplicably awkward. Previously, she was filled with anger as she felt that Chu Luiyue was blocking her path to first place. In a moment of impulse, she even agreed to let Chu Luiyue replace her in the competition. However, when she gradually calmed down, she realized that doing so did not seem to benefit her at all. Seeing that Chu Luiyue still did not move, she finally stepped forward. Chu Luiyue, I've thought about it for a long time, but I still feel that it's not appropriate for you to replace me in the competition. Her voice was gentle and sweet, and her tone was extremely sincere. Her slightly furrowed brows made her look even more pitiful. I believe that you didn't purposely interrupt my pill concoction, so it's unfair to you if I continue to be so calculative with you. Don't worry. Even if you can't concoct the pill, I won't blame you. Boom. Flames suddenly rose from the medicine cauldron in front of Chu Luiyue. At the same time, a strong wave hit the medicine cauldron. Boom. An indescribable dense medicinal fragrance spread throughout the air. Chu Luiyue stretched out her wrist, and the pill automatically landed in her hand. She quickly placed the pill into the jade box at the side. Her series of actions were smooth, and the crowd only realized what had happened when Chu Luiyue closed the jade box with a thud. Chu Luiyue actually succeeded. Situ Xingqian was dazed. All the blood in her body seemed to have frozen, and she was dazed. Chu Luiyue then looked at her. What did you just say? Situ Xingqian opened her mouth, but she could not spit out the rest of her words. She was still in a state of shock and could not recover her senses. Oh? Chu Luiyue tilted her head and asked again. Situ Xingqian's lips moved. She wanted to use her usual smile to hide her awkwardness and embarrassment, but she realized that it was as if she was wearing a thick mask. She could not move at all, and even the corners of her lips became extremely heavy. Chu Luiyue actually succeeded. How could she laugh at this? Nothing. Situ Xingqian was frustrated. Why did I say all those things just now? Now it seems like I'm really stupid. Chu Luiyue shrugged and nonchalantly curved her lips. She didn't continue asking as she walked toward Elder Feng Yi and the other two. She stood in front of the three of them and handed over the jade box in her hands. I'm sorry to have made you wait, Chu Luiyue said very politely. Elder Feng Yi laughed out loud. Not long. Originally, the Celestial Physician competition did not have a fixed time limit. Besides, you even successfully produced a pill. As he spoke, he nervously and curiously opened the jade box. A pill appeared in front of him. The moment he saw this pill, Elder Feng Yi suddenly widened his eyes. This? He almost couldn't wait to pick up the pill and carefully examine it. He only suppressed the agitation in his heart after a while. This is a 4th grade, medium. What? Cheng Lixue and Mo Tsang, who were at the side, were originally very unhappy, so they sat in their chairs and did not look carefully. Upon hearing Elder Feng Yi's words, the two of them spoke in unison. Feng Yi, don't tell me you purposely overestimated her just because she's a student from your academy? Mo Tsang blurted out. Elder Feng Yi waved his hand. Take a look yourself. You'll know when you see it. Mo Tsang suspiciously took the pill and his expression changed. Cheng Lixue sensed that something was amiss and also leaned over. He saw that there were 4 lines on the pill. But the most important thing was that the 4th line was clearly clearer than Lung Chuan's and Ji Zixing's. This was indeed a 4th grade, medium. Elder Feng Yi laughed out loud. Now you won't object, right? The two of them were silent. Elder Feng Yi raised his voice, and his eyes glowed with pride. Liu, congratulations. This pill's final evaluation is a 4th grade, medium. This is the highest grade pill that appeared in today's competition. It's unquestionably first. Chu Luiyue smiled and looked at Situ Xingqian. Eldest Princess Situ, congratulations. Digression. After a meal, the 5th update will probably be a little late. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 275. Congratulations. When Situ Xingqian heard this, it was as if she had been slapped harshly. Even if Chu Luiyue replaced me in the competition and let me get 1st place, everyone could clearly see that Chu Luiyue was the one who refined the 4th grade pill. Everyone had personally witnessed Chu Luiyue's extraordinary talent and shocking abilities. At this point, Situ Xingqian finally realized something. The higher the grade of the pill Chu Luiyue refined and the better the ranking, the greater the humiliation he brought to me. After the Qingjiao competition, everyone would know that I, Situ Xingqian, could only get 1st place in the Celestial Physician competition because Chu Luiyue was outstanding enough. By then, everyone's focus would be on Chu Luiyue. Who would care about me? All the fame and glory would belong to Chu Luiyue in the end. What am I? I'm just a pitiful and lamentable accessory. Chu Luiyue gave me 1st place, but at the same time he gave me a huge humiliation. Situ Xingqian was so regretful that her intestines turned green. Her face was red and white, and she wanted to disappear from this place immediately. Elder Feng Yi surveyed the surroundings. I hereby announce that the 1st place in this year's Qingjiao competition for the Celestial Physician competition is Taiyan Academy's Situ Xingqian. When his low and powerful voice landed, the huge square fell into an eerie silence. Especially the people from Taiyan Academy, their expressions were indescribable. Eldest Princess Situ, you don't seem to be very happy. Chu Luiyue blinked and asked. I vaguely heard you say that you wanted to cancel the agreement between us. What? Is my compensation not enough? Situ Xingqian's body trembled slightly. You're asking the obvious. Chu Luiyue clearly did it on purpose. She clenched her teeth and forced a smile, but there was no smile in her eyes. And no. Chu Luiyue helped me get 1st place. How can I say that it's not enough? But she would rather not have this 1st place now. Elder Feng Yi cupped his hands towards Cheng Han and chuckled. Dean Cheng Han, congratulations. Cheng Han felt like he was about to vomit blood. Before this, he had never thought that he would actually obtain 1st place in the warrior tournament in such a manner. But now, when he heard the word, congratulations, he felt that it would be better if he didn't have a ranking. In the end, Chu Luiyue was the one who took first place. For so many years, he had never encountered such an aggrieved and speechless matter. Sun Zhongyan looked at Ji Zixing and patted him on the shoulder. Zixing, you performed very well this time. Although you didn't help our academy get first place, but strength is respect, and you have to admit defeat. Am I right? Ji Zixing replied, Thank you, elder son, for your guidance. This student will remember it well. Qing Han clenched his fists. Sun Zhongyan was making oblique accusations. Every word was filled with mockery. However, he had no way to refute it. Zuorong, Xian Tsang, and the others looked at each other with complicated expressions. After a while, Zuorong could not help but hold his forehead and mutter to himself. I knew that this girl was indeed hiding her true abilities. Previously she probably acted so clumsy on purpose. To think that they thought that she was really not good at alchemy. Xian Tsang was even more embarrassed. At that time he was the one who looked down on Chu Luiyue the most. He did not expect that, after keeping silent for a while, he said, No wonder the dean was willing to accept her as a disciple. There was probably no other person with such talent in the entire country, Yaochen, right? Zuorong quickly got over it and clapped his hands. Why are you thinking so much? That girl was hiding her abilities on purpose previously. Not only us but so many people also did not see through it, right? TSK, I heard that Lu Yu caused a lot of trouble for the Chu family. Now it seems like it was nothing. When the news of the Qingjiao competition spreads, TSK. Previously, when Chu Luiyue entered Tianlu Academy, the Chu family might have regretted it, but it was not to the extent of heartache. After all, the Chu family still had Chu Xianmin, who was considered one of the best in the academy. However, it was different now. In the Qingjiao competition, Chu Luiyue took first place in both the warrior and Xian master categories. Strictly speaking, she was also first in the celestial physician category. Even in the entire history of country Yaochen, such a genius had never appeared before. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know what Chu Luiyue's current talent meant. As long as there were no accidents, she would definitely be a top-notch warrior with a bright future. That would be a fatal blow to the Chu family. The 3 rounds of the Qingjiao competition had finally ended. Next, the prizes would be given out according to the rankings. Situ Xingqian did not remember how she accepted the so-called first place. Her entire body was numb and her mind was in a mess. In comparison, Chu Luiyue was not affected at all. The judges handed over 2 cosmic bags. Sun Zhongyan smiled. Lu Yu, these 2 cosmic bags are your prizes for winning first place in the warrior category and first place in the Xian master category. The items are inside. You can check them yourself. Envious noises could be heard from the crowd. Just these 2 cosmic bags were precious enough, not to mention the other treasures inside. Chu Luiyue did a simple check and realized that there were some precious Xian formation diagrams, some high-leveled martial arts techniques, and even a mid-level fiend's core of essence. Her lips curled up into a bright smile. Thank you, Elder Sunday. Elder Sun nodded in satisfaction when he saw her being neither servile nor overbearing. There were many good items in the cosmic bag. Chu Luiyue was actually so calm and magnanimous. She was giving face to the academy's director. Of course, the most important thing was her talent and abilities. Other than these, there's one more thing. You can choose any one of the 3 academies and borrow books for free for a month. I asked you a few days ago and you said that you needed to think about it. Do you have an answer now? Chu Luiyue nodded. Elder Son, I've thought about it. I want to go to Taiyan Academy. Once she said that, everyone was shocked. Even though Taiyan Academy was also an option, it was obvious that Chu Luiyue had completely offended the entire academy. If she went, wouldn't she be causing trouble for herself? Even Qing Han couldn't help but ask. Are you sure? I'm sure. Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change. She had to personally investigate Heng Jingchua and Yang Jianqing's matter. This was the best opportunity. What? Don't you welcome her, Director Qing Han? Qing Han sneered and slowly said, Why? Why would I? Taiyan Academy welcomes her. Chu Luiyue pretended not to hear the threat in his words and smiled. Thank you. Emperor Jiawen finally spoke. Lu Yu. Before he could finish his sentence, Eunuch Min suddenly walked over and anxiously said, Your Majesty. Emperor Jiawen said unhappily. Why are you so flustered? Eunuch Min hurriedly knelt down and presented a letter with both hands. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I do have something important to report. The Tianling dynasty's envoy is already 20 kilometers away from the imperial city. He'll arrive soon. Chu Luiyue's heart harshly trembled. She suddenly looked up. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from my Yuan. Chapter 276. Emperor Jiawen was also shocked as he stood up abruptly. What? Didn't they say that it would take some time? Why are they here so suddenly? We aren't prepared yet. Eunuch Min wiped the sweat off his forehead and said fearfully. Your Majesty, I don't know either. What do you think we should do? What should we do? What else can we do? Emperor Jiawen hurriedly walked forward. Of course I'll personally welcome them. Hearing Emperor Jiawen say this, the Empress hurriedly followed and signaled Rong Jin and Rong Qi with her eyes. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and I will go with you. Emperor Jiawen thought for a while and agreed. In such an occasion, it would be more solemn with more people. The Empress and the Crown Prince's identities were just right. His footsteps kept moving forward. His face, which had always been expressionless, was visibly nervous. Seeing Emperor Jiawen's reaction, the others naturally didn't dare to delay. Other than Rong Jin, the other princes and princesses immediately stood up and obediently followed. The elders from the 3 academies were also shocked, and their expressions were strange. However, most of the people in the square didn't know what kind of existence the Tianling dynasty was, so they were confused when they saw this scene. Tianling dynasty? What's that? Why haven't I heard of it before? Look at His Majesty's anxious look. I really don't know where the other party is from. Could their status be higher than His Majesty's? Gosh, I heard that there's an existence thousands of miles away that's countless times stronger than our country Yao Chen. Could it be? Sure. This matter isn't something we can discuss. Be careful of what you say. Probably because of Emperor Jiawen and the rest's influence, the entire square's atmosphere became strange and tense. Sun Zhongyan thought for a moment. Bai Chen, immediately bring the students back. I'll go with His Majesty. Bai Chen and the rest immediately nodded. This matter concerned the Tianling dynasty, so even they couldn't help but be nervous. But at the same time they couldn't help but feel curious. One had to know that this was the first time the Tianling dynasty had sent people to country Yao Chen in 100 years. If he had the chance to meet him, he might be able to obtain some kind of opportunity. Sun Zhongyan then looked at Fu Yunshan and Qing Han. As expected, he saw that their faces were also filled with shock. He couldn't care less and quickly said, Brother Yunshan, Brother Qing Han, this is an important matter. You should bring your students back first. If anything happens, I will immediately. People from the Tianling dynasty are coming? Qing Han couldn't help but walk up to Sun Zhongyan. He couldn't believe his ears. Why would a top empire that only existed in rumors send people to a small country like country Yao Chen? Sun Zhongyan paused for a moment. They're not coming. They're already here. Not many people knew about this piece of news, and Emperor Jiawen clearly said that the news wasn't to be leaked before the people came. Therefore, Qing Han and the others didn't know about this, so it was normal for them to react this way. Qing Han sucked in a breath of cold air and spent a lot of effort to calm himself down. However, Eunuch Min's words kept flashing in his mind. The people of the Tianling dynasty were just 20 miles away from the imperial capital. I'll go too. Qing Han blurted out. What? Sun Zhongyan knitted his brows. Qing Han shook his sleeves and said sternly, I'm Emperor Jiawen. As the Dean of Taiyan Academy, don't I have the right to meet you? Sun Zhongyan was about to retort when Fu Yunshan spoke up. Me too. It's fine if we're not here. After all, the esteemed guests are here to visit country Yao Chen. But coincidentally we're here. Your Majesty, why can't you introduce us to them? Qing Han suddenly became eloquent. This matter concerned the Tianling dynasty, so he naturally couldn't give up on this great opportunity. Seeing that Sun Zhongyan was about to reject him again, Qing Han decisively turned around and walked toward Emperor Jiawen. Your Majesty, my Taiyan Academy, Director Qing Han and Director Fu Yunshan can come along. Emperor Jiawen quickly gave a reply as he kept walking forward. At the same time, he kept instructing his subordinates on what to do. He had heard Qing Han and Fu Yunshan's words clearly. Even if he didn't want anyone else to be involved in this matter, he couldn't reject them in front of so many people. Hence, he quickly decided to let the two of them participate. However, this was enough for Qing Han and Fu Yunshan. The two of them quickly arranged for the other elders to bring the students back as they quickly followed Emperor Jiawen and the rest. Sun Zhongyan had no choice but to do so. Bai Chen was counting the number of people when he inadvertently turned around and realized that Chu Liwei was standing there in a daze, not moving at all. Liu? He shouted, but Chu Liwei didn't react at all. Liu? It's time to go. Chu Liwei then looked over. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes were frighteningly deep and cold. Bai Chen was dazed, and a subtle sense of respect grew in his heart. Chu Luiyue seems a little different. She didn't seem to have changed at all, but Bai Chen strangely felt that there was a terrifying aura around her that couldn't be defied. To be precise, it was a terrifying aura that only a superior person would have. He closed his eyes, and when he looked again, he saw that Chu Luiyue was already walking over. The aura around her had also disappeared as if it had never existed. "Teacher Bai Chen," shouted Chu Luiyue. Seeing that she didn't seem to be acting strangely, Bai Chen felt that he might have sensed wrongly, so he didn't think too much about it. "Luyu, the Qingjiao competition has ended. You can go back and have a good rest. The people from that place are here?" asked Chu Luiyue suddenly softly. Bai Chen was dazed and nodded. He didn't notice the light that flashed across Chu Luiyue's eyes. "I heard that the people from that place are very strong?" Chu Luiyue's voice was very soft, as if she was asking curiously. If someone else asked this question, Bai Chen wouldn't be bothered to answer. However, it was different since the person asking was Chu Luiyue. He admired Chu Luiyue before, and Chu Luiyue's performance in the Qingjiao competition had amazed him. Now that he liked Chu Luiyue so much, he was naturally willing to answer some of her questions. "That's right. To us, it is a place we can only look at but not reach. Now that they've sent someone here, it's naturally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Then she asked jokingly, "Didn't you say that the person who came in first in the midterm assessment can also go and meet them?" Not only did she come in first in the midterm assessment, but she also came in first in the Qingjiao competition. She should be qualified, right? Chu Luiyue asked, but she was laughing coldly in her heart. She never thought that one day, it would be so difficult for her to even meet someone from the Tianling dynasty. Bai Chen was a little troubled. "That's right, but the situation now, Buzz." The sound of a sword suddenly resounded in the sky. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw a tall figure with fluttering clothes standing on a long sword. The figure broke through the air. A familiar aura rushed towards her. Her heart was beating wildly as if it would jump out of her mouth at any time. The air in her chest was squeezed out, leaving behind an endless oppressive feeling. Chu Luiyue clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She stared at that person. That was digression. "I have to catch a plane in the morning. I'll try to finish writing the update on the way and on the plane, but it'll probably be very late. Moa moa. I feel like I'm about to save an explosive update. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Iowa." Chapter 277. The Deputy General of the Tianling Dynasty's Black Cavalry, Mu Qinghe. His face was handsome, but there was a scar that extended from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone, which made him look more ferocious. Coupled with his cold aura, he made people feel that it was difficult to get close to him. It was a fighting spirit that had been honed through countless life and death experiences on the battlefield. Although more than a year had passed, Chu Luiyue recognized Mu Qinghe immediately. He was one of her most trusted subordinates. When Chu Luiyue saw that it was him, many emotions flashed through her mind. Shock, confusion, doubt. In the Tianling dynasty, everyone knew that the youngest deputy general of the Black Cavalry, Mu Qinghe, was the subordinate of the Heavenly Princess. He was born into a lowly family and had been living in exile since young. He had been following Shanghai Yu since he was 13 years old. Later he volunteered to join the Black Cavalry and went to the most dangerous place, Dahuang Swamp. He did his best to gain military merits and was promoted to the position of deputy general in the shortest time possible. When he gained a foothold in the Black Cavalry, Shanghai Yu was about to be in power. At that time he had military power and became a huge pillar of support for Shanghai Yu. Later on, Shanghai Yu was trapped in the Imperial Ancestral Hall, and all the rescue requests they sent were ignored. Among them, Mu Qinghe was sent. Chu Luiyue looked at the familiar face, and many emotions surged in her heart. After she was reborn, she had thought about the situation countless times and felt that something was wrong. Mu Qinghe had been carrying a communication device with him. Logically speaking, he should have received her message. Even if he didn't know, she had been trapped in the Imperial Ancestral Hall for 3 days and 3 nights. According to Mu Qinghe's usual vigilance, he should have realized that something was wrong. However, from the start to the end, she did not see Mu Qinghe appear. There were many strange things and she had her suspicions. However, Mu Qinghe was one of the people she trusted the most. He had followed her for many years and had always been loyal. Chu Luiyue didn't want to continue thinking about it. She even worried that Jiang Yuqing and Shang Guanwan would do something to Mu Qinghe after her death. But now Mu Qinghe was here representing the Tianling dynasty. In other words, Mu Qinghe had not been implicated in her death for more than a year. According to Jiang Yuqing's personality, how could he easily let go of anyone who had a close relationship with her? Unless, Mu Qinghe's sudden appearance shocked everyone on the spot. Just the powerful aura on his body alone was enough to disdain him. Emperor Jiawen reacted first. Vice Admiral Mu. The person who came was actually Mu Qinghe. He had met Mu Qinghe when he went to the Tianling dynasty. At that time he was still with the princess. Now that the princess was no longer around, it was rumored that the person in power had changed. He originally thought that Mu Qinghe would be defeated, but it seemed like he wasn't affected at all. A ray of light flashed under Mu Qinghe's feet, and the long sword rapidly disappeared. He floated in the air and walked down step by step. His footsteps were steady as if he was walking on flat ground. Chu Luiwei pressed her lips against each other. Mu Qinghe had long been a stage 8 warrior. Now that they were outside heaven's canopy, his cultivation level seemed to be suppressed to stage 6. Even so, he was still the strongest existence here. The suppression from a top warrior was substantial, and it made everyone in the square unknowingly respect him. The originally spacious square seemed much more cramped at this moment. Everyone quietened down. They were nervous, excited, and full of respect. Most people even lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Mu Qinghe directly. Mu Qinghe walked in front of Emperor Jiawen. His aura was too strong and it made Emperor Jiawen seem much smaller and weaker. "Rong Xiao, how have you been?" said Mu Qinghe. His voice was as cold as snow in winter and it was bone-chilling. Emperor Jiawen couldn't help but shiver. He bowed slightly and was even more respectful. "Vice Admiral Mu came from afar and we didn't welcome you properly. Please forgive us, Vice Admiral Mu." The two of them had a simple conversation, but it stirred up waves in the crowd's hearts. This man, who's called Vice Admiral Mu, actually dared to call His Majesty by his name. Not only was Emperor Jiawen not angry at all, but he was even more respectful and attentive. This showed that this person's identity was definitely more honorable than imagined. "It's fine. This trip was very sudden," said Mu Qinghe lightly. Even though he said that, his face was still expressionless and exceptionally cold. Emperor Jiawen was still very nervous and he tried to ask, "Vice Admiral Mu, do you want to change to another place so that you can have a good rest first?" "All right. Don't worry. We've already prepared a place for you, and you can move in immediately. It's already late today, so why don't we officially welcome you tomorrow?" Mu Qinghe thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay." Emperor Jiawen heaved a sigh of relief. This person was the princess's favorite, and it was rumored that he was hard to get along with. When Emperor Jiawen saw that the envoy was actually him, he was very worried for a while. However, it seemed like it wasn't that exaggerated now. "Then I'll bring you there now. Vice Admiral Mu, please." Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to say the word "I" in front of Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe's gaze lightly swept across Emperor Jiawen and the people behind him. Emperor Jiawen didn't know what he was looking at, but he didn't dare to rush him. He could only wait at the side. Mu Qinghe suddenly said, "Qing Jiao competition? It seems like it's not just country Yao Chen. Even the young talents from country Xing Luo and country Huai Tsang are here?" When Cheng Han heard that, he was elated and immediately took 2 steps forward. "Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu. I'm the director of country Xing Luo's Tai Yan Academy, Cheng Han. It's an honor to meet you." For so many years, the Tianling dynasty was still a rumored existence. This was the first time he saw a strong warrior from the Tianling dynasty, and it sounded like he had a high status. If he could take this chance to get close to him, wouldn't it be just a matter of time before he soared to the top? Mu Qinghe calmly looked at Cheng Han. Suddenly, Cheng Han felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. His entire body was in excruciating pain. The blood in his body flowed rapidly and his ears were ringing. He was shocked and wanted to speak, but he realized that he couldn't even open his mouth. Most people didn't notice this, but Fu Yunshan, Sun Zhongyan and the rest, who were standing nearby, were shocked. No matter what, Cheng Han was a stage 5 celestial physician and a stage 4 warrior. Even if his combat skills weren't top-notch, he wasn't easy to deal with. However, this man, no, he didn't even make a move. He just looked at him and Cheng Han was suppressed to this extent. His strength was unfathomable. More importantly, this man looked very young. He was at most in his 20s, but he had already reached such a level. After a while, Mu Qinghe retracted her gaze, and Cheng Han felt the pressure on him disappear. His lips and teeth were filled with the strong smell of blood. He took a step back in panic and didn't dare to speak again. Mu Qinghe turned around and was about to leave when she suddenly felt a gaze on her. Her eyes flickered and she turned to look. Digression, bad news, my plane took off 3 hours later so I had to wait again. Good news, I don't have to write on the plane anymore. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Web. Chapter 278. That night, Chu Luiyue did not sleep well. In a blur, she seemed to have had a very long dream. In the dream there were many scenes that kept appearing. However, in the end they were all burnt to a crisp and were all annihilated in a ball of flames. When Rong Xiu arrived, he saw Chu Luiyue lying on the bed, her brows tightly furrowed and her body curled up into a ball, muttering something softly. The moonlight shone through the window, elongating his tall figure. Half of his face was in the light while the other half was in the dark. His eyes were as deep as the sea, but there seemed to be an icy flame burning within them. He walked forward and pulled her into his arms. Chu Luiyue was like a traveler walking in the desert who had finally found an oasis. She subconsciously leaned closer. Rong Xiu bent down and kissed her forehead lightly. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Chu Luiyue grabbed the front of his shirt with both hands. Her eyes were tightly shut, but a teardrop fell from the corner of her eye. Rong Xiu sucked that teardrop away. The tip of his tongue was bitter. He moved back a little and looked at the person in his arms. His voice was low, drifting in the night wind, so low that it was almost inaudible. What will come will come. The next morning, when Chu Luiyue woke up, she smelled a familiar cold fragrance on her body. She immediately understood that Rong Xiu had come. Actually, even without this smell, she would have been able to guess. In the first half of the night, she had been restless and had nightmares, but in the second half of the night, she had quietly calmed down and become at ease. Only Rong Xiu could be like this. Unknowingly, she had long gotten used to Rong Xiu's existence and gradually developed a dependence on him. A hint of sweetness overflowed from the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and walked to the window, looking at Yifeng courtyard. Rong Xiu was not in the courtyard at this moment. She could only see the lush peach tree. A gentle breeze blew, making her much more clear-headed. Since she had already reached this step, she could only continue forward. Luiyue. Someone was calling her name downstairs. Chu Luiyue tidied up briefly and went downstairs to open the door. It was Teacher Bai Chen. Teacher Bai Chen? Why are you here? Bai Chen's expression was a little complicated. There was excitement and worry. He handed over an invitation. This is the invitation for today's palace banquet. His Majesty wants to welcome that person. You took first place in the midterm examination and performed very well at the youth's meeting, so, you are also invited. This was an extremely good thing. After all, not everyone was qualified to meet the envoys of the Tianling dynasty. But Deputy General Mu seemed to treat Chu Luiyue a little differently yesterday. She didn't know if he would take Chu Luiyue's rebuttal to heart. Chu Luiyue took the invitation. Thank you, Teacher Bai Chen. I will be punctual tonight. Luiyue, Teacher Bai Chen said hesitantly. You have to be careful when you follow Elder Sunday. Are you worried that Deputy General Mu will target me? Chu Luiyue immediately guessed Bai Chen's worries. The corners of her mouth curled up. Don't worry. If someone of his status really wanted to do anything to me, he wouldn't have waited until the palace banquet. Bai Chen thought about it and found that was true. What you said is not unreasonable. But it's better to be more cautious. Bai Chen said a few more words before leaving. After Chu Luiyue thanked him, she looked at the invitation in her hand again. The corners of her mouth slowly curled up into a smile. She had waited for this day for too long. At noon, there was still an hour before the banquet officially started. The seats on the left and right sides of the Jiayang Hall were already filled with people. Only a few seats at the head of the table were still empty. Clothes were worn and people were toasting each other. Everyone was chatting with each other and the atmosphere seemed very harmonious. But in fact, everyone's eyes would look up from time to time. They had all come today for that Deputy General Mu of the Tianling dynasty. Mother, you have to help me this time. Rong Zhen moved closer to the Empress and begged incessantly. That Deputy General Mu is so powerful, he'll definitely be able to help me recover. She had seen it clearly in the square yesterday. That Deputy General Mu's strength was stronger than anyone she had ever seen before. The Empress felt some hope in her heart. She patted Rong Zhen's hand and comforted her in a low voice. Don't worry, Mother will definitely find a chance to help you ask for it. But that Deputy General Mu seems to be a cold person, so I don't know if he will help. Why not? He definitely will. Rong Zhen's eyes lit up and her face was full of admiration. Mother, I feel that although he looks cold but, her cheeks blushed. The Empress's heart skipped a beat. Looking at Rong Zhen, she had clearly fallen in love with that Mu Qinghe. She had really gone crazy. Zhen Yu, what kind of person are you? You're not someone we can provoke. You'd better get rid of that thought as soon as possible. The smile on Rong Zhen's face immediately disappeared. Mother, what do you mean by that? He's the most powerful person I've seen all these years. Even Imperial Brother can't compare to him. Why can't? The Empress hurriedly pulled her arm and quickly scanned the surroundings. Only when she found that no one was paying attention to them did she feel slightly relieved. What else could I mean? You know very well in your heart. Mother will only tell you one thing. This time I only want to help you recover your body. You're not allowed to have any wild thoughts about anything else. That Mu Qinghe was obviously a ruthless person. Not to mention that he didn't like Rong Zhen. Even if he did, he could easily toy with Rong Zhen in the palm of his hand. Rong Zhen had long been raised to be very willful after so many years. When she was around such a person, the slightest carelessness could cost her life. In short, don't mention it again. If this path doesn't work, then we'll do it according to Chu Liyue's method. The Empress's expression became a little more severe. Rong Zhen didn't dare to make a fuss anymore and pursed her lips. Got it? But that Chu Liyue is really a fox. He actually dared to seduce me in front of so many people yesterday. The Empress gave her a warning look. Only then did Rong Zhen shut her mouth completely, but her disgust for Chu Liyue deepened. If she found out that Chu Liyue still dared to act like this at the banquet today, she would definitely not let Chu Liyue off easily. After Chu Liyue arrived with Elder Sun and the others, she sat down in her seat and waited quietly. She could feel a lot of eyes on her, but she didn't care. She slowly swirled the wine cup in her hand. Until, Tianling Dynasty's Deputy General Mu has arrived. She turned her head to look. Mu Qinghe walked in from outside the door. Emperor Jiawen was half a step behind and respectfully invited him to take a seat. For a moment, the hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. After a while, everyone bowed in unison. Mu Qinghe's gaze swept across the crowd. Almost uncontrollably, his gaze once again landed on Chu Liyue. Emperor Jiawen thought that he was still angry about what happened yesterday, so he said eagerly, Vice General Mu, didn't you come here to find some outstanding geniuses? Chu Liyue is one of the best among them. Perhaps you also know that she's a rare martial artist, mystic adept, and heavenly doctor. Mu Qinghe's gaze flickered. What a coincidence, I have an old friend who's also a martial artist. Digression. I'll probably only be able to update one chapter tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, but it won't be as late as today. I'll be back to normal in a few days. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 279. How are you worthy of using this name? This sentence clearly landed in Chu Liyue's ears. She almost couldn't help but laugh. I'm not worthy? This is my name. How am I not worthy? Mu Qinghe's words almost made her think that he was speaking up for her. But, is that possible? If Mu Qinghe had always been loyal to me and never betrayed me, why would I die so tragically a year ago? As for him, how was it possible that he wasn't affected at all after her death? The Black Cavalry's lieutenant was an important position. Jiang Yuqing was very ambitious. How could he let her remaining henchmen continue to occupy these positions? She was almost certain that Mu Qinghe had long sided with Jiang Yuqing without her knowledge. If not, there was really no way to explain everything that happened afterward. Upon seeing his reaction, Chu Liyue was shocked and felt that it was a joke. Where was he when I asked for help back then? What did he do when I was forced to take my virginity? After I died, he even killed the snow deer and made it into a pair of boots, stepping on it every day. Now he's saying all this again. Don't you find it contradictory? Chu Liyue had too many questions and too much hatred. All of it accumulated in her heart, making her unable to breathe. But in the end, she still took a deep breath and lowered her head. Even if you think that you're unworthy, you have no right to change it. Liyu, what are you talking about? Emperor Jiawen was shocked and immediately reprimanded him. Hurry up and apologize to Vice Admiral Mu. As he spoke, he nervously looked at Mu Qinghe. Vice Admiral Mu, this child is still young and he really didn't mean to contradict you. Please don't take it to heart. Why don't you let Liyu change his name? It's just a name. Do you have to make such a fuss? Not to mention a mere Chu Liyue, even he would not dare to go against Mu Qinghe. Chu Liyue had always been smart. What was wrong with him today? Mu Qinghe stared at Chu Liyue. That's not necessary. With that he turned around and left. His steps seemed slow but his speed was very fast. Emperor Jiawen gave Chu Luiyue a warning look. You brat. Consider yourself lucky today. Don't do it again, do you understand? Chu Luiyue's tense heart relaxed a little. Even though she knew that Emperor Jiawen was worried that she would be implicated, she still remembered his kindness in helping her. She smiled and her eyes curved. Thank you, Your Majesty. Emperor Jiawen grunted, turned around and quickly caught up with Mu Qinghe. The group of figures quickly disappeared before everyone's eyes. After a long while, the quiet square became noisy again. Chu Luiyue heard quite a few people talking about her. I wonder where that Vice Admiral Mu came from. What did he mean when he said that about Chu Luiyue? I thought that he was interested in Chu Luiyue since he has that face. However, it seems like Chu Luiyue has offended him. There are so many people here but he only talked to Chu Luiyue. I think he's not simple. That person looks like a murderous god. How can he be moved by a woman? I think Chu Luiyue is more mysterious. It was obvious that most people did not think highly of what happened today. Mu Hongyu ran over and nervously asked, Chu Luiyue? Luyu? What exactly happened just now? Chu Luiyue lightly said, what else could it be? What else could it be? He's just asking for my name. Besides, he seemed very unhappy with my name. How can you be so calm? That's... Mu Hongyu lowered her voice. That's someone from the Tianling dynasty. Chu Luiyue nodded indifferently. I know. She used to be someone from the Tianling dynasty and was this person's master. You, sigh. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue's indifferent expression and felt that it was useless for her to say anything more. Did she know that if she really made that person unhappy, her life would be in danger? Didn't she see that His Majesty was so respectful to him? It was really the case that the eunuch was not worried. Since the competition is over, it's time to go back. Let's go? Chu Luiyue said and walked forward with a calm expression. Mu Hongyu hurriedly caught up and wanted to try her best to persuade Chu Luiyue, but she swallowed her words when she saw Chu Luiyue's tired expression. Chu Luiyue had been competing for the past few days and did not have a good rest. Since things are already like this, let's just let him be. With this thought, Mu Hongyu felt much more relaxed. She then held Chu Luiyue's arm and left. Sai Luyu, I saw your previous competition. Gu Mingfeng and Xin Hu also followed. The few of them acted as if nothing had happened, so the others did not say much. After these people left, the remaining people also felt bored and dispersed. The people from Taiyan Academy and Nanfeng Academy also prepared to leave. Xingqian? Xingqian? Emotsang saw that Situ Xingqian was still staring at a certain spot and raised his voice. Situ Xingqian recovered her senses. We should go. Emotsang walked to her side and followed her line of sight. You're looking at that Vice Admiral Mu? Situ Xingqian nodded and felt a little regretful. I didn't expect to see such a person here. Country Xingluo is not inferior to country Yaochen, so why don't we have such a fortuitous encounter? It's naturally not easy for us to guess such a powerful existence, Emotsang muttered. When he recalled Qing Han's appearance just now, he felt a little scared. That person's abilities are really unfathomable. Situ Xingqian did not say anything. Actually, other than being shocked by Vice Admiral Mu's appearance, she was more concerned about, why did he look at Chu Luiyue differently? There were tens of thousands of people in the square, and Chu Luiyue was standing further away back then. Why did that man choose Chu Luiyue? In terms of looks, I'm not inferior to Chu Luiyue. Also, what did he mean by those words? To others, perhaps Chu Luiyue was unlucky and might even be punished because of this. However, I didn't sense any killing intent toward Chu Luiyue from that man. I keep feeling that something is amiss. Mu Qinghe was a little distracted throughout the journey. In actual fact, he had not thought of that person for a very long time. For some reason, when he saw that girl today, he subconsciously thought of many things from the past. He wanted to get rid of the images in his mind, but he realized that the more he tried to do so, the clearer he remembered them. Those scenes appeared in front of his eyes again and again. She laughed, she was sad, she was nervous, she was cunning, she was majestic. And her hopeless face. In the end, for some reason, those images overlapped one another and gradually faded away. In the end, only a pair of eyes was left. They were watery, but they were quiet and bright like obsidian. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Yes, that Chu Luiyue has the same eyes as her. Digression. The sequence of the previous chapter's questions was written wrongly. Please don't mind it and just ignore it. Then I'll get off the plane now and get on the subway. I'll try my best to update the 5th chapter as soon as possible. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 280. That night, Chu Luiyue did not sleep well. Vaguely, she seemed to have had a very long dream. In the dream, many scenes kept appearing. However, in the end they were all destroyed in a ball of fire. When Rong Xiu arrived, he saw Chu Luiyue lying on the bed. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and her body was curled up into a ball. She was muttering something in a low voice. The moonlight shone through the window, elongating his tall figure. Half of his face was in the light, while the other half was in the dark. His eyes were as deep as the sea, but there seemed to be a cold flame burning in them. He stepped forward and took her into his arms. Chu Luiyue was like a traveler in the desert who finally found an oasis. She subconsciously leaned closer to him. Rong Xiu lowered his head and kissed her forehead. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Chu Luiyue grabbed the front of his clothes with both hands. Her eyes were closed, but a teardrop fell from the corner of her eye. Rong Xiu sucked that teardrop away. The tip of his tongue was bitter. He stepped back a little and looked at the person in his arms. His voice was low, drifting in the night wind. It was so low that it could not be heard. "What will come will come." The next morning, Chu Luiyue woke up and smelled a familiar cold fragrance on her body. She immediately understood that Rong Xiu had come. In fact, even if there was no smell, she could probably guess. In the first half of the night, she was restless and had nightmares. However, in the second half of the night, she quietly calmed down and became at ease. Only Rong Xiu could be like this. Unconsciously, she had already gotten used to Rong Xiu's existence and gradually developed a dependence on him. A trace of sweetness overflowed from the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, walked to the window and looked at Yifeng courtyard. Rong Xiu was not in the courtyard at this time. She could only see the lush peach tree. The breeze blew, waking her up a lot. Since he had already reached this step, he could only continue moving forward. "Luyu?" Someone was calling her name downstairs. Chu Luiyue simply tidied up and went downstairs to open the door. The person who came was actually Teacher Bai Chen. "Teacher Bai Chen? Why are you here?" Bai Chen had a complicated expression on his face. He was excited and worried at the same time. He handed over an invitation card. "This is the invitation card for today's banquet. His Majesty wanted to hold a welcoming dinner for that person. You came in first place in the midterm assessment, and your performance in the Qingjiao competition was also very outstanding, so you were invited as well. This was supposed to be an excellent thing. After all, not everyone was qualified to meet the Tianling dynasty's envoys." However, Vice Admiral Mu from yesterday seemed to treat Chu Luiyue differently. She wondered if he would take Chu Luiyue's rebuttal to heart. Chu Luiyue took the invitation. "Thank you, Teacher Bai Chen. I'll be there on time tonight." "Luyu," Teacher Bai Chen said hesitantly. You'll follow Elder Sunday. Be careful." "You're worried that Vice Admiral Mu will target me?" Chu Luiyue immediately guessed Bai Chen's concern. The corners of her mouth curled up. "Don't worry. If someone of his status really wanted to do something to me, he wouldn't wait until the banquet." Bai Chen thought about it and agreed. "What you said is not without reason. However, it's better to be cautious." Bai Chen said a few more words before leaving. After Chu Luiyue thanked him, she looked at the invitation card in her hand. She slowly curled the corners of her lips and smiled. She had been waiting for this day for too long. At noon, there was still an hour before the banquet officially started. In the Jiaoyang Palace, the left and right sides were already filled with people. Only a few seats at the top were still empty. Clothes and hair were messy and people were toasting each other. Everyone chatted with each other and the atmosphere seemed very harmonious. However, everyone's eyes were actually looking up from time to time. Today they were all here for the Tianling dynasty's Vice Admiral Mu. "Mother, you have to help me this time." Rong Zhen leaned close to the Empress and kept begging. "That Vice Admiral Mu is so powerful. He can definitely help me recover." She had seen it clearly at the square yesterday. That Lieutenant General Mu's strength was stronger than anyone she had ever seen before. The Empress also had more hope in her heart. She patted her hand and comforted her softly. "Don't worry. Mother will definitely find a chance to help you beg him. However, that Vice Admiral Mu looks very cold. I don't know if he will help." "Why wouldn't he? He definitely will." Rong Zhen's eyes lit up, and her face was filled with admiration. "Imperial Mother, I feel that although he looks cold, but..." Two streaks of red flew up her cheeks. The Empress's heart skipped a beat. Seeing Rong Zhen like this, it's obvious that she likes that Mu Qinghe. She's really crazy. Zhen, what kind of person are you? He's not someone we can trifle with. You better get rid of this thought as soon as possible." The smile on Rong Zhen's face immediately disappeared. Mother, what do you mean by that? He's the most powerful person I've seen all these years. Even Brother Royal can't compare to him. Why can't I? The Empress hurriedly pulled her arm and quickly scanned the surroundings. She was slightly relieved when she realized that no one was paying attention to them. What else could it mean? You know it clearly in your heart. I'll only tell you one thing. I only want to help you recover this time. You're not allowed to think about anything else. That Mu Qinghe is clearly a ruthless person. Not to mention that he doesn't like Rongzhen. Even if he did, he could easily play Rongzhen in the palm of his hand. After so many years, Rongzhen was already very willful. When she was beside such a person, she would lose her life if she wasn't careful. Anyway, don't mention it again. If this path doesn't work, we'll do it according to Chu Liyue's method. The Empress's expression became sterner. Rongzhen didn't dare to make a fuss anymore and pouted. Got it? But that Chu Liyue is really seductive. He actually dared to seduce me in front of so many people yesterday. The Empress gave her a warning look. Rongzhen then completely shut up, but the hatred she had for Chu Liyue in her heart deepened. If she found out that Chu Liyue still dared to do this at the banquet today, she definitely wouldn't let Chu Liyue have a good time. After Chu Liyue arrived with old Master Sun and the rest, he sat down in his seat and waited quietly. She could feel many gazes landing on her, but she didn't care. She slowly turned the wine glass in her hand. Until Tianling Dynasty's Vice Admiral Mu arrives. She turned to look. Mu Qinghe was walking in, and Emperor Jiawen was half a step behind him as he respectfully invited him to take a seat. For a moment, the hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. After a while, the crowd bowed in unison. Mu Qinghe's gaze swept across the crowd. He almost couldn't control his gaze as it stopped on Chu Liyue again. Emperor Jiawen thought that he was still angry about yesterday's incident, so he eagerly said, Vice Admiral Mu, didn't you come here to find some outstanding talents? Chu Liyue is one of them. You might also know that she's a rare talent, a warrior, a Xian master, and a celestial physician. Mu Qinghe's gaze flickered. What a coincidence. I have an old friend who's also a triple talent. Digression, I can only update one chapter at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, but it won't be as late as today. I'll adjust back in the next few days. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from my UN. Chapter 281. That's such a coincidence. Emperor Jiawen had just heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Mu Qinghe wasn't smiling. Instead, she looked at Chu Liyue with a judgmental gaze. Only then did he realize that this didn't seem to make Mu Qinghe happy. You're a triple cultivator? Which one is more outstanding? Asked Mu Qinghe lightly. The hall was very quiet as the emperor's gaze shifted between Mu Qinghe and Chu Liyue. Mu Qinghe treated Chu Liyue differently yesterday, and she picked me to talk to when she just arrived today. It would be a blatant lie if I said that I didn't treat Chu Liyue well. I just don't know if this is a good or bad sign. Before Chu Liyue could speak, Sun Zhongyan spoke first. Lu Yu took first place in the warrior and Xian master competitions. As for the celestial physician, she's also very outstanding. Yesterday, he heard this person mention to Emperor Jiawen that he seemed to have the intention to select some outstanding talents. Even if he really didn't like Chu Liyue, he probably wouldn't go overboard on account of her talent. Mu Qinghe's expression didn't change. Oh, it seems like you're an all-rounder? Chu Liyue could hear the mockery in his voice. He had been by her side for many years, and she was very familiar with his words and actions. Even though his face was always expressionless, Chu Liyue could always guess what he was thinking. It seems like he clearly doesn't think highly of my all-rounder. Rong Xiao said that you're 14 this year. What's your warrior level? Vice Admiral Mu, Stage 2. What's your Xian Master level? Second 2. What grade of pill can you refine? 4th grade. Mu Qinghe chuckled. It seems like you're only slightly talented in Celestial Physician, but that's all. Chu Liyue curtsied. Your Majesty and Elder Sun are overpraising him. With Lu Yu's insignificant talent, Vice Admiral Mu naturally wouldn't take a liking to him. Mu Qinghe saw that her expression was calm and did not show any signs of anger. The inexplicable anger in her heart from being offended dissipated a lot. At least you know your place. Back then, when that person was 14 years old. Mu Qinghe seemed to have thought of something, and his expression suddenly turned cold. Why was he thinking of that person again? She was not the only all-rounder in this world, but how many could be compared to her? He didn't say anything else and walked back to his seat with a cold face. Emperor Jiawen was beside him, and he very sensitively felt that the latter's aura suddenly became much colder. Hence he couldn't help but feel even more confused. What's going on? Weren't they having a good chat just now? Chu Liyue's every word was very appropriate, and there was no problem at all. Why does Mu Qinghe not like me? Even if Chu Liyue's talent can't be compared to those people from the Tianling dynasty, he's definitely considered one of the top talents in country Yaoqian. Emperor Jiawen was confused, and the others were even more so. Chu Liyue is actually only SOSO in Mu Qinghe's eyes? Then aren't the rest of us even worse? But thinking about it carefully, this Vice Admiral Mu looks like she's only in her 20s, but her abilities are far beyond our reach. Hence, they seem to understand. It seems like the Tianling dynasty is much stronger than we thought. After Mu Qinghe and Emperor Jiawen sat down, the crowd carefully sat down. The two of them sat at the head of the table, and Emperor Jiawen was still sitting in the middle. However, Mu Qinghe's aura was even stronger. Just by sitting there, her surroundings seemed to have frozen. Everyone in the palace became much more reserved. Even though quite a few people wanted to perform well in order to gain Vice Admiral Mu's favor, they all obediently sat there under the deterrence of a top warrior. Mu Qinghe was a little frustrated. After he went back yesterday, he felt that he had really lost his composure. Who's Chu Liyue? She's just an ordinary girl in this small country Yaoqian. He came here because he had something important to do, but after seeing Chu Liyue, he thought of many messy things which caused his emotions to become messed up. I really care too much about Chu Liyue. Or rather, Chu Liyue reminds me of that person too easily. Other than their eyes, they clearly don't look alike in any other way. Mu Qinghe poured a glass of wine and slowly felt around. When Chu Liyue looked up, she saw that Mu Qinghe seemed to have sunk into deep thought, and she didn't know what he was thinking about. Her gaze landed on his wine glass and she laughed self-deprecatingly. In the past, Mu Qinghe never touched a drop of wine. Only a little more than a year had passed, but so many changes had happened. As if sensing her gaze, Mu Qinghe looked up again. What are you looking at? Chu Liyue stood up and smiled. Vice Admiral Mu came from afar, and it must be tough on you. Liyue was too rash yesterday, so I'll toast you here. I hope you can forgive me. Then he picked up the wine glass in front of him and finished it in one gulp. What a fox. Rong Zhen cursed in her heart. Ever since Mu Qinghe came in, Chu Liyue had been using all sorts of methods to attract his attention. Now she was even more brazenly seducing him. There are so many people present, and all of them are more qualified than me to toast to him. Mu Qinghe then looked at the wine glass in his hand. A strong wine aroma wafted into his nose. He knitted his brows in disgust and put the wine glass down. Bam! The wine glass made of green jade landed on the table and made a crisp sound. There was a moment of silence in the hall. Everyone looked at one another. Is he angry again? I don't drink wine, said Mu Qinghe coldly. Each and every word was extremely cold and hard. Shock flashed across Chu Liyue's face. He still doesn't drink wine? So he was thinking about something else when he poured the wine just now? When he's deep in thought, he often gets distracted and takes the wrong things. It seems like this is the same as before. Emperor Jiawen realized something and hurriedly scolded the palace maid beside him. How did you serve him? Who put this wine on the table? Your Majesty, please forgive me. A palace maid anxiously knelt down and begged for mercy. However, she felt very wronged. Who knew that this VIP didn't drink wine? Isn't he a general from the military? Why doesn't he drink wine? Chu Liyue quickly looked down, and a tinge of panic flashed across her face. Liyue was too rash and it's all my fault. Vice Admiral Mu and Your Majesty, please don't implicate others. Rong Zhen proudly grunted. Let's see if she still dares to be so impudent. Originally, Mu Qinghe didn't like her. Now that this happened, let's see if she still dares to be so arrogant. Didn't she just get first place in the Qingjiao competition? What's there to be proud of? Can't she see that I don't even like her? Rong Zhen didn't think that if Mu Qinghe didn't like Chu Liyue, he wouldn't like anyone else in the palace. Mu Qinghe's face darkened for a while. Just as the crowd was thinking about how he was going to punish Chu Liyue, he said, Don't worry. Forget it. Digression, I'll update it as soon as possible today so everyone should be able to read it together tonight. Myo mobile users, please browse and read it. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 282. The crowd couldn't figure out Mu Qinghe's thoughts, so they all quietened down. On the other hand, Chu Liyue was very calm as if nothing had happened. She sat down and allowed all sorts of gazes to size her up. She could roughly guess that Mu Qinghe recalled the past, but she didn't know where his anger came from. After meeting him this time, she realized that Mu Qinghe's personality seemed to have changed a lot. Even though he was quiet in the past, he wasn't as unpredictable as he was now. Emperor Jiawen came out to smooth things over. Haha, Vice Admiral Mu, you said yesterday that you came here to pick some people to cultivate with you. Is that true? Everyone's attention immediately shifted to Mu Qinghe. Countless pairs of eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. Follow Mu Qinghe back? Isn't that going to the Tianling dynasty? This is a great opportunity. The Tianling dynasty is such a powerful existence. In the entire country Yao Qin, only Emperor Jiawen has the right to go there. The others don't even need to think about it. I didn't expect to have such a chance now. Mu Qinghe actually came here personally to pick people. That's right. Mu Qinghe's short 2 words immediately made the crowd's heart skip a beat. Even though Emperor Jiawen already knew about this yesterday, he still felt very excited when it was brought up. There was an unconcealable glow of excitement in that pair of old eyes that were always calm and unperturbed. Almost all of country Yao Chen's most outstanding talents are here. Take a look and see if there's anyone you like. Other than the princes and princesses, there were also important figures from the various aristocratic families, Tianlu Academy's elder son and the rest. Of course there were also Fu Yunshan and Qing Han. Upon hearing Mu Qinghe's affirmative answer, the two of them looked at each other and saw the eagerness in each other's eyes. Mu Qinghe actually came here to pick people. He even wants to bring them back to the Tianling dynasty. I really don't know what kind of luck country Yao Qin has. However, since we're here we might as well join in. After all, there were many outstanding geniuses in the 2 academies. As long as one was chosen, their future was limitless. Mu Qinghe swept her gaze across the crowd. Those who were seen by him unconsciously straightened their shoulders and held their breaths. Vice Admiral Mu. Rong Jin suddenly stood up. I wonder if I can recommend myself? Out of habit he wanted to say this consort, but he suddenly remembered that even Imperial Father didn't dare to call himself Zhen in front of Mu Qinghe, so he hurriedly changed his words. Emperor Jiawen didn't expect Rong Jin to take the initiative and was very surprised. But on second thought, Rong Jin was the most talented among all the princes, so he could give it a try. If even he couldn't do it, then there was no need to mention the others. After all, he was the crown prince. He should have the courage and insight. Mu Qinghe glanced at him. Rank 4 warrior? Such a powerhouse would be able to tell the level of other cultivators with just a glance. Rong Jin nodded nervously. In another month I should be able to break through to rank 5 warrior. The crowd stared at him in shock. It wasn't easy to break through to rank 5 warrior, and many people were stuck at this stage their entire lives. But since Rong Jin dared to say this in front of everyone, he must be confident. Sensing the crowd's reaction, Rong Jin was delighted. Even though he lost to Heng Jingchua at the Qingjiao competition a few days ago and was poisoned, it wasn't without benefits. After clearing the poison in his body, he shockingly realized that he seemed to have signs of breaking through. He had been cultivating diligently for the past 2 days, and he had vaguely touched that invisible barrier. Hence, he concluded that he could definitely break through in another month. This was actually a pleasant surprise. He originally wanted to wait until he really broke through, but he couldn't care less now. As long as he could get Mu Qinghe's praise, then should? There's no should or shouldn't when it comes to cultivation. As long as you don't break through, you're still a stage 4 warrior. Mu Qinghe's voice was cold as if she wasn't moved. Rong Jin was dazed. He looked up and saw the obvious indifference in Mu Qinghe's eyes. This was the attitude of a strong warrior towards an ant. Rong Jin was dazed. You should be over 20 years old this year, right? Rong Jin nodded hesitantly. Mu Qinghe snorted. Then how can you stand here and say that you're volunteering yourself? What right do you have? Rong Jin didn't expect to be humiliated by Mu Qinghe in front of so many people. His face flushed red. Mu Qinghe's every word made him feel extremely embarrassed. He had been outstanding since he was young, and he had always been praised by others. This was the first time he was looked down upon. Emperor Jiawen looked awkward. Rong Jin thought for a while and suddenly smiled playfully. Lieutenant Mu, my brother is already the most outstanding. If you don't even like him, then no one here will be able to catch your eye. Her smile was bright, and her tone was light as if she was acting coquettishly. Mu Qinghe glanced at her. Rong Jin's heart raced. She was nervous and expectant. Who are you? Mu Qinghe coldly spat out a few words. The smile on Rong Jin's face froze. The palace was dead silent. Chu Liwei looked down and played with the empty wine glass in his hand as his lips curved up. Mu Qinghe climbed up from the bottom, so she was very determined. After he became her right-hand man, Countless girls wanted to throw themselves at him. Of all shapes and sizes, what had he not seen before? But before she died, he was 27 years old, and he still didn't have a wife or concubine. Rong Jin really didn't deserve to be ranked. He didn't know where she got her confidence from to think that Mu Qinghe would fall for her tricks. Rong Jin had never been humiliated like this in public, and her face was as pale as a sheet. Emperor Jiawen was already scolding Rong Jin in his heart. How stupid. Can't she see that even I don't dare to speak up for Rong Jin? She actually dares to speak up like this? She's really embarrassing the royal family. You don't have the right to speak. He harshly chided. Rong Jin's eyes turned red and tears fell. The empress gave a look to the person behind her to pull Rong Jin back before letting her sit down again. The atmosphere in the palace became even colder. Mu Qinghe asked, "Among you, who has a Daijing Yuan meridian?" Daijing Yuan meridian. The moment these few words came out, it made everyone's faces turn silly. How many years did it take for a genius to have a Daijing Yuan meridian to appear? It was fine if Mu Qinghe didn't say it, but she actually had such high standards once she opened her mouth. If she were to find someone based on this standard, none of the people here would be qualified. It seems like there aren't any. Chu Liyue's heart tingled and he stood up. I am. Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 283. The woman in front of him was beautiful and had curved eyebrows and eyes. Her eyes were very similar to hers. But if one looked carefully, there were some differences. She used to be as high as the sun, high above the clouds and unparalleled in the world. Even if she just stood there, she could make people submit to her and not dare to blaspheme her. However, the Chu Liyue in front of him had more of a worldly aura. Although her eyes looked clear, if one looked carefully, one would find that there were too many things hidden in Chu Liyue's eyes. Curiosity, eagerness, flattery, and a trace of expectation. He had seen too many people looking at him like this. People who wanted to get something from him would always look at him like this. Probably because she was still young, although her expression was very calm, her eyes couldn't lie. The subtle feeling in Mu Qinghe's heart gradually dissipated. The pair of eyes in his mind gradually became clear and became two people. It's okay. He suddenly felt a little bored. Without saying anything more, he turned around and left. Hong Yao reluctantly looked at Chu Liyue and then followed Mu Qinghe. This time it was very obedient and didn't look back. Vice Admiral Mu, take care. Chu Liyue bowed respectfully. When Mu Qinghe's figure gradually disappeared in front of her, the eager smile on her face gradually disappeared. She pursed her lips into a straight line, looking a little cold. She had fooled him today, but she had to be more careful in the future. Fortunately, Hong Yao had always been very obedient. After sensing her thoughts, it really didn't pounce on her again. Chu Liyue stood in place for a long time. It wasn't until her neck itched that she came to her senses. She looked down and saw Dumpling squatting on her shoulder, looking at her pitifully with a pair of round eyes. Chu Liyue tapped its head. You feel wronged? You almost got me into big trouble today, do you know that? Dumpling actually fought with Hong Yao in front of so many people. If Mu Qinghe pursued the matter, not to mention Dumpling, even she would have to bear the consequences. Dumpling rubbed her cheeks ingratiatingly. Hong Yao has a noble status and is very powerful. Don't provoke it in the future. Chu Liyue continued. However, when Dumpling heard this, she immediately stared at Chu Liyue with her eyes wide open, full of accusation. You're actually speaking up for that guy. Who exactly is your magical beast? Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows and looked at it. Today should be the first time you met the Red Demon, right? Why are you so hostile? It didn't provoke you. Dumpling shook her head frantically. He had provoked them. He had provoked them. That guy actually dared to throw himself into Chu Liyue's arms. How audacious. Plucking a tuft of hair was just a simple lesson to it. If there was a second time, let's see how I'll deal with it. Seeing Dumpling's high fighting spirit, Chu Liyue was silent for a moment and simply gave up trying to persuade it. Although Dumpling hadn't been with her for long, she had already figured out its character. Since it dared to openly attack Hong Yao in the main hall today, it would only fight more fiercely in private. It was useless to persuade it. Your temper is really like Hong Yao's, Chu Liyue muttered softly, but she didn't say the rest of the sentence. If it was in the past, she could at least mediate, but the situation was different now. Hong Yao's identity was extraordinary, and it could almost do whatever it wanted in country Yaoqin. If Dumpling continued to target it and even fought with it, people with ulterior motives would definitely not let her off easily. Chu Liyue's slender and fair fingers gently tapped Dumpling's nose. If you're not obedient, I won't bring you out next time. This sentence finally worked, and a hint of hesitation flashed across Dumpling's eyes. If I can't come out with Chu Liyue, what should I do if that fellow takes advantage of the situation? In the end, it could only nod its head unwillingly. Chu Liyue sighed softly. For some reason she had a feeling. When Hong Yao and Dumpling meet again, they will definitely fight again. Let's go. There's still a lot of trouble waiting for us in the future. Clatter. Inside the room, the sound of all sorts of things being smashed could be heard. It wasn't hard to imagine the anger of the owner. The palace servants all stood in the courtyard and looked inside from time to time, trembling in fear. Are you done? The Empress's authoritative voice sounded, and Rong Zhen, who was on the verge of losing control, finally found a trace of rationality. She glanced at the Empress, and her eyes were red as if she had suffered a great grievance. But this time the Empress didn't console her like before. Instead, she was even angrier. You're still feeling wronged? Do you know what you've done today? That person is the envoy of the Tianling dynasty, and he has seen many tricks up his sleeves. Your thoughts have already been seen through by him. Who do you think you are? Rong Zhen looked at the Empress in disbelief. Ever since she was young, her mother had always doted on her. Even if she was willful and rash, her mother would always reprimand her. She had never been reprimanded by her mother like this before. Rong Zhen's face turned pale, and her body swayed as if she couldn't take such a blow. But the Empress didn't intend to stop. She took a few steps forward and stood in front of Rong Zhen, looking at her sternly. Do you know that if you weren't careful today, not only would you lose your life, but other people would also be implicated? Look at your brother. Isn't that the case? It's fine if you throw a tantrum in the past, but how dare you be so impudent today? I. Rong Zhen's body trembled and tears kept falling. Mother? What did I do wrong? I only said a few words. Aren't those few words enough? The Empress suddenly raised her voice, scaring Rong Zhen so much that she shivered, and fear and panic appeared in her eyes. Seeing her like this, how could the Empress's heart not ache? But today she was determined to teach Rong Zhen proper manners. Otherwise, with her temperament, she would sooner or later bring harm to everyone. It's fine if something happens to you, but can you bear the responsibility if it harms your brother? Today, Rong Jin had embarrassed himself in front of everyone, and the Empress was both heartbroken and afraid. On the one hand, she was worried that this would be a huge blow to Rong Jin. On the other hand, she was worried that this would affect His Majesty's view of Rong Jin. If what happened today were to spread, Rong Jin's situation would become even more difficult in the future. Rong Zhen looked up in disbelief. Mother actually said that it was fine if something happened to me? Brother. Ever since I was young, I've done a lot for brother. She sneered. Mother, even if I'm in the wrong today, is brother really completely innocent? He's useless and can't compare to Chu Liyue, so Vice Admiral Mu didn't take a liking to him. He's useless. But mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 284. Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents as she heaved a sigh of relief. However, she wasn't happy at all. Instead, she was confused. Mu Qinghe seemed to care a lot about the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Did he come to country Yaoqin specifically to find a genius with the Daijing Yuan Meridian? However, in the Tianling dynasty, such people weren't common, but they weren't rare either. Why did he come all the way here to find them? Everyone looked at Chu Liyue in shock. It took them a while to come back to their senses. What did this mean? Chu Liyue really had the Daijing Yuan Meridian? Didn't that mean that she could follow Mu Qinghe to the Tianling dynasty? Mu Qinghe put away the stone. Chu Liyue asked tentatively. Vice Admiral Mu, since it's proven that I have the Daijing Yuan Meridian, then what you said before? Mu Qinghe was expressionless. You can indeed follow me back since you have the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Chu Liyue held her breath. She could clearly hear the sound of her heart beating fast. Don't be happy too early. Having the Daijing Yuan Meridian is just the beginning. There are other requirements. If you can't meet them, you won't be able to go. Mu Qinghe said calmly. Chu Liyue lowered her eyes. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Liyue will do his best. She knew that things weren't that simple. However, this was still an opportunity. It was even more in line with her thoughts. Although she wanted to go back as soon as possible and let those people experience the pain she had experienced, she knew very well that now wasn't the best time. With her current strength, she would just be courting death if she went back and fought them head-on. Mu Qinghe grunted. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief, but the others had mixed feelings. Everyone present had come with hope, but the requirements for the Daijing Yuan meridian were too high, and they could not fulfill them. In the end, it was Chu Luiyue who came out on top again. How could they be happy about this? Emperor Jiawen hesitated for a while, but he still carefully asked, Vice Admiral Mu, do you really only want people with the Daijing Yuan meridian? Actually, there are some. Although they are not the Daijing Yuan meridian, they are still very good. Why don't you pick some more? If they're all like him, then there's no need to say anything more. Mu Qinghe's gaze swept past Rong Jin. Rong Jin was even more embarrassed. As the crown prince, he had never experienced such a thing. Even when his father grounded him and took back many of his rights, he had never felt so humiliated. This was equivalent to giving him a few tight slaps in front of everyone. Emperor Jiawen didn't know how to reply at that moment. Not to mention Rong Jin, even he didn't dare to show any displeasure when someone said that to him. Hearing Mu Qinghe's words, he couldn't continue and could only shut his mouth awkwardly. The entire palace's atmosphere became even stranger and colder. However, Chu Luiyue was very calm as he calmly ate his food and ignored the surrounding gazes. Rong Zhen clenched her teeth and hated Chu Luiyue for getting this rare opportunity one moment, and she was also annoyed at her previous rashness the next moment. After being reprimanded by Mu Qinghe, she originally felt very humiliated. However, when she saw that Mu Qinghe treated the others the same way, including Rong Jin, she didn't feel so angry anymore. When she gradually calmed down, she also felt that her previous actions were a little overboard. Who is Mu Qinghe? He's the Tianling dynasty's envoy. He's the high and mighty lieutenant. Even father has to give in to him, so what if I'm reprimanded by him? Besides, I'm still counting on Mu Qinghe to help me heal my body. Thinking of this, she gave the Empress a look. The Empress saw the urgency in Rong Zhen's eyes and naturally knew what she meant. However, this made her even more frustrated. Does Rong Zhen think that I don't want to ask Mu Qinghe for help? Why doesn't she know? Look at the situation now. First it was the crown prince, then it was Rong Zhen. This pair of siblings was reprimanded in front of so many people, and she lost all her face. If they really made Mu Qinghe unhappy, he could casually kill them with one finger. How could she speak now? Seeing that the Empress didn't move, Rong Zhen couldn't help but feel anxious and even wanted to get up a few times. Luckily, the palace servants standing behind her had already received the Empress's signal and silently held her back. Rong Zhen was very unhappy, but she didn't dare to really make a scene in this place, so she could only bear with it. At this point, something suddenly flew in from outside the door. Chu Luiyue took a look and was suddenly stunned. It was a green sparrow. It was only the size of a palm and its entire body was green. However, its claws and eyes were red. Especially its pair of eyes, they were as bright as rubies and were very beautiful. This green sparrow flapped its wings and flew very quickly, but it didn't make any sound. Hence, when the people in the palace discovered it, it had already rushed to the center of the palace. Stop it. Rong Jin frowned and hollered. What are you doing? What kind of place is this? Can't even stop these random things? The guards outside rushed in one after another, but they couldn't say anything after hearing Rong Jin's scolding. The flying speed of this thing was simply too fast. They couldn't stop it in time. Your Highness, please calm down. We have important guests here today. This is my fiend. Mu Qinghe, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly spoke. Rong Jin's remaining words were suddenly stuck in his throat, and his entire body froze. His limbs were cold. Mu Qinghe waved his hands and the green sparrow flew toward him. Silence reigned in the hall. The green sparrow landed in Mu Qinghe's hands. Mu Qinghe glanced at it and saw that there was a trace of blood under its wings. He knitted his brows slightly, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. You're injured? Who hurt you? The green sparrow moved its wings and covered the blood stains. Mu Qinghe knitted his brows even tighter. Hong Yao was a 7th grade fiend. It was very strong and rarely lost. Yesterday it was a little anxious for some reason, so he let it out. He didn't expect it to be injured. Who else in country Yao Chen has such capabilities? Hong Yao bit the feathers on its wings, feeling wronged. Mu Qinghe said coldly, Why didn't you say before? What did you promise before coming here? That you wouldn't cause any trouble. Are you obedient now? Hong Yao didn't expect to be scolded even when it was injured, and it felt even more wronged. Its beautiful ruby-like eyes didn't blink, but they quickly filled with tears, making it look very pitiful. Mu Qinghe suddenly sighed in his heart. Hong Yao has really been spoiled by that person. It feels wrong just by saying a few words. Hong Yao. Mu Qinghe's voice became stricter. Hong Yao suddenly turned around. Suddenly, It paused and looked at Chu Luiyue in a daze. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. The next moment he saw the small red sparrow flying toward him. Digression, Khan was so stuck that he wanted to die. His computer screen suddenly turned white again. The last chapter will be updated before midnight. I'm so unlucky today that I have nothing to say. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 285. News of what happened at the palace banquet quickly spread among the aristocratic families in the imperial capital. Chu Luiyue also became the topic of discussion. First, she took first place twice in the Qingjiao competition. Then, she was chosen to follow Mu Qinghe to the Tianling dynasty because of her Daijing Yuan meridian. In just a few days, Chu Luiyue became famous. She became the envy of everyone. Ordinary people might not know, but the important figures in the aristocratic families all knew what the Tianling dynasty meant. From now on, Chu Luiyue would have a meteoric rise and a bright future ahead of her. The palace banquet ended in the afternoon, but Chu Luiyue had already received many gifts at night. She didn't need to look to know that those were people who wanted to get close to her, so she rejected all of them. After returning to the academy, she even chose to enter Jiuyou Tower to cultivate, regardless of the storm outside. At the Chu residence. Chu Xiao returned to the Chu residence with a gloomy face. The servants trembled in fear when they saw his expression and didn't dare to say anything. However, this situation was quickly changed. Since the afternoon, people kept asking to see him. And they were all asking for the same thing. What? Let Chu Ning and his daughter return to the Chu family? Hearing their suggestion, Chu Xiao exploded like gunpowder that had been ignited. That's impossible. Don't even think about it. Chu Ning and his daughter had already broken off all ties with the Chu family. Everyone in the imperial capital knew that they were at odds with each other. If they were to discuss this matter with them now, it would be equivalent to them admitting defeat. By then, the entire Chu family would become the laughingstock of the imperial capital. Chu Xiao felt uncomfortable every time he thought of that. He was determined not to agree. However, the members of the Chu family who had always obeyed him were also very determined this time. Great Elder, things are different now. The news that Chu Luiyue was chosen to go to the Tianling dynasty has already spread among the aristocratic families. Even if she had a huge conflict with us in the past, we are still family. The same blood flows in our bodies. Why can't we let it go? That's right. She's no longer the useless trash that she used to be. Needless to say, her achievements in the future will definitely be great. This is also a great opportunity for the Chu family. Grand Elder, it's not as if we don't have your concerns. However, if we continue to fight with them, we'll only be at a disadvantage. After today, how many people in the imperial capital will want to get close to Chu Luiyue? She's still from the family? As long as we take the initiative to ask for peace, she will definitely give us face. Listening to their hopeful words one after another, Chu Xiao was extremely irritated. He abruptly interrupted them and shouted angrily, "Let's go! Don't you know what kind of Chu Luiyue? If you ask her for peace now, you're just asking for your own humiliation." Everyone looked at each other in dismay, feeling a little troubled. In fact, how could they not know this point? But wasn't there no other way? Could it be that he could only watch helplessly as such a great opportunity was missed? Compared to the Tianling dynasty, what was this little bit of face? As long as they could repair their relationship with Chu Luiyue, they could have whatever they wanted in the future. Great Elder, we all know that you don't like Chu Luiyue. However, shouldn't you think about the entire Chu family now? Third Elder suddenly spoke, his tone slightly cold. Chu Xiao's expression turned stern. What do you mean? The third Elder smiled. Nothing. We all know why Chu Luiyue left the Chu family. To be honest, it's because of you. It's not a big deal if you're safe. However, Chu Luiyue is different now. We're in a favorable position. Wouldn't it be a pity if we give up just like that? The others nodded. Chu Ning and his daughter are not unreasonable people. As long as we sincerely apologize, I believe we can salvage the situation. Chu Xiao scolded angrily. You're crazy. Great Elder, we're not crazy. This is our only choice now. Third Elder was not frightened by Chu Xiao's anger at all, and his expression did not change. Our Chu family has been declining all these years, and our situation is not good. It wasn't easy to nurture Chu Xianmin, but she's basically useless now. Now that we finally have a top talent like Chu Luiyue, we have no reason not to seize the opportunity, right? No matter what, she's someone that Vice Admiral Mu thinks highly of. What's wrong with us lowering our heads? When she becomes successful in the future, it'll be many times harder for us to do all this. The third elder's words immediately drew everyone's agreement. Everyone discussed fervently, implying that they hoped Chu Xiao would be the representative to apologize to Chu Ning and his daughter and invite them back to the Chu family. Chu Xiao was annoyed. Say whatever you want. If you want to build a relationship with Chu Luiyue, go ahead. In any case, this old man will definitely not go. Third elder smiled faintly. Great elder, you're so stubborn. I wonder what the head of the family will think when he comes out and finds out about this? Chu Xiao's expression froze. He had almost forgotten about this. The head of the family had been in seclusion for too long, and he had already regarded himself as the head of the Chu family. Although third elder's words were unpleasant, they were not without reason. He could ignore the others but not the head of the family. It would be hard for him to explain himself then. After hesitating for a long time, Chu Xiao's expression changed several times before he finally agreed. Give Chu Luiyue. Forget it. Give Chu Ning an invitation and say that we have something to discuss with him. Chu Luiyue entered Jiuyou Tower again. As she had already broken through to stage 2, she easily ascended to the second floor this time. The Qing Jiao competition had just ended, so not many students came to Jiuyou Tower. Chu Luiyue simply walked around the second floor and realized that there wasn't much of a difference here other than having a stronger force. She randomly found a room and started cultivating. Not long after she sat down, Chu Luiyue heard a sharp and hoarse roar. That sound came closer and closer and it gradually became clearer. The powerful suppression also became more and more terrifying. Chu Luiyue even felt as if the blood in her body had solidified. Screech. That screech seemed to be right beside her ear, and it almost pierced her eardrums. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. But this time she suddenly saw a pair of scarlet and sharp eyes in front of her. That pair of eyes was burning with raging flames. They covered the sky and covered the earth. Digression. I sincerely apologize to everyone. I had been running around outside today, and then I had to entertain my friends at night. I thought that I would come back to write after a simple meal, but I didn't expect that there would be so many delays, and I couldn't abandon my friends and come back alone. I feel very guilty. I'll update later. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 286. Hong Yao tilted its head to one side, making it clear that it didn't want to talk to Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe stared at Hong Yao. Your temper is getting worse and worse. Hong Yao glared at her with tears in its eyes. When she was here before, she never dared to treat it like this. Only a short time had passed, but its life was getting worse and worse. It had suffered enough in the past year. Mu Qinghe was such a stupid master. The more Hong Yao thought about it, the angrier it became. It couldn't wait to go back and find Chu Luiyue. But it knew that Mu Qinghe would definitely not agree. Besides, that guy was still here, its fur had been plucked off. Bang. Hong Yao was so angry that it simply lay straight on the ground. I won't go. I can't live like this. Mu Qinghe's eyes twitched. It's useless for you to throw a tantrum. Hong Yao didn't move. It was determined not to go with him. It might as well just let it die. Thinking of how it was injured by a beast that had been imprisoned for many years when it went out yesterday, Hong Yao felt ashamed. And today it was treated like this by Mu Qinghe. It couldn't live like this. Mu Qinghe closed his eyes hard and tried to control his emotions, lest he accidentally killed his demonic beast. Who hurt you? If you are willing to tell me, I can help you take revenge. Hong Yao's eyes moved, but its body was still tense. It thought for a while and was in a dilemma. You can even get injured in such a place. It seems that you haven't been diligent in cultivation during this period of time. Mu Qinghe's following words successfully made Hong Yao give up the idea of asking him for help. A green flame ignited on its body, burning away the remaining bloodstains. Mu Qinghe raised his eyebrows and was a little surprised. Hong Yao had always liked to make trouble outside and then let him clean up the mess. He didn't expect it to be so courageous today. Since you don't want to tell me, I'll ask another question. Mu Qinghe's eyes were as sharp as a substance. He stared at Hong Yao as if he wanted to see through it. Just now in the main hall, you, Vice Admiral Mu. Before Mu Qinghe could finish her sentence, she was suddenly interrupted by a clear female voice. He turned around and saw that it was Chu Luiyue. What a coincidence. Mu Qinghe's expression changed and she glanced at Hong Yao. The red demon lying on the ground suddenly froze. It's over. He had been seen. This was too embarrassing. Without thinking, it flew up from the ground and rushed up. Then it circled around Mu Qinghe, not forgetting to dive down to the ground in the middle, pretending that it was also around Mu Qinghe. From afar it looked like a jubilant butterfly. Mu Qinghe was speechless. Chu Liwei walked closer and asked in a surprised tone. Vice Admiral Mu, your magic beast looks really lively. Yes, he was still as good as ever. His ability to play dead and act shamelessly was still the same as before. Mu Qinghe was speechless. Hong Yao, who was flying excitedly, suddenly felt embarrassed. For a moment, it didn't know whether it should continue to fly. It staggered and almost fell from the air. In the end, it could only lower its head and accept its fate. What's the matter? Mu Qinghe coughed, but there was still no expression on her face. Chu Liwei smiled faintly. There is one thing I want to ask you for help with. I don't know if you are willing to agree. Say it. According to Mu Qinghe's character, she was never interested in this kind of thing. If it was before today, he would definitely not say a word when Chu Liwei talked to him like this. But thinking of Hong Yao's reaction to her, Mu Qinghe felt that maybe she should find an opportunity to get to know Chu Liwei more. Chu Liwei bowed. I have a friend whose mother has been ill for many years. Her condition has worsened recently. I wonder if Vice Admiral Mu can help? Lu Yu will definitely be very grateful. Mu Qinghe frowned. Your friend? Chu Liwei nodded. Mu Hongyu. She is country Yao Chen's Princess Yong'an. Mu Qinghe didn't care if Mu Hongyu was a princess or not. Even if it was Emperor Jiawen, he might not be willing to help. However, Hong Yao and you hit it off very well. For its sake, I can help you. Chu Liwei looked surprised and looked at Hong Yao. Then I really have to thank Hong Yao. Her red lips moved slightly as she softly called out its name. She was the one who named Hong Yao. Back then, when Mu Qinghe was hunting fiends, she coincidentally obtained Hong Yao, but she didn't know what to call it. Chu Liwei thought that it was a green sparrow, and Mu Qinghe also had the word Qing in her name. Thus, they were considered to be fated. Hence, he purposely gave it the opposite name, Hong Yao. Now, when he called out this name again, things had changed. Hong Yao was stunned and instinctively wanted to fly toward Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei glanced at it. The human and fiend looked at each other and undercurrents surged. Hong Yao suddenly paused. I don't seem to want to now. It stared at Chu Liwei and couldn't wait to run over and complain to Mu Qinghe. Dumpling squatted on Chu Liwei's shoulder and stared at it warily. Hong Yao felt a dull pain at the spot where the feathers were plucked off. After hesitating for a long time, it finally didn't go over and could only bury its head under its wings. No one saw the tears rolling down its cheeks, all of them falling into its feathers. After a while, its wings were wet. Seeing it like this, Chu Liwei felt very sorry for it. Hong Yao had always been arrogant and often made a lot of trouble. But when it was really sad, it would only bury its head in its wings and cry, just like now. How could she not want to hug Hong Yao? Since her rebirth, everything she thought of in her previous life was like a dream. All the true feelings were fake and all the loyalty was betrayal. In the end, Hong Yao was the only one who missed her. Seeing Hong Yao like this, she felt that the pain that went deep into her bones was a little comforted. But now was not a good time. Mu Qinghe said, I will stay here for a while. Let her come here. I will send a celestial physician to treat her. As the deputy general of the Black Cavalry, he had great power. It was not difficult for him to mobilize a few celestial physicians. Chu Liwei looked away with a polite and eager smile on her face. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. After saying that, she asked hesitantly, but Vice Admiral Mu means that you won't leave immediately? Didn't he come here to pick people with the Daijing Yuan Meridian? Apart from that, was there something else? Mu Qinghe replied with a faint "emichem," but didn't say anything else. Chu Liwei knew that she wasn't qualified to ask so much now, so she didn't say anything and just curtsied. In that case, Lu Yu won't waste your time. I'll take my leave first. After saying that, she took a step back and turned to leave. Stop. Mu Qinghe suddenly said. Chu Liwei stopped in her tracks, turned around and asked with a smile, Vice Admiral Mu, is there anything else? Digression, when I go out today it will probably be very late. Don't wait during the day. Let's read it together at night. So how much do you owe now? Woo mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 287. Dumpling nodded vigorously. Chu Liwei was speechless. This was already the 4th floor and only stage 4 warriors could come up here. Looking around, it was empty. In the entire academy, there were less than 10 students who had reached stage 4. And there were no stage 5 warriors. Not a single one. Chuning was also a stage 5 warrior. Cultivators who could reach this level could be considered powerful in the entire country Yaochen. It was obvious that there shouldn't be anyone above the 5th floor. Now it was hard to figure out how Tuanzi could pass through the barrier of the floor so easily. Chu Luiyue was most worried about something else. If they came up so quietly, would they alert Elder Wei Yun who was guarding Jiuyou Tower? Jiuyou Tower was very important to Tianlu Academy. If they really caused a commotion and were discovered, it would be difficult for her to explain herself. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was standing there in deep thought and didn't seem to have any intention of following her, Dumpling couldn't wait any longer and turned around, heading straight for the 5th floor. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly as she watched Dumpling fly to the barrier on the 5th floor. Although there was still a distance between them, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the suppression above. It was much stronger than the one on the 4th floor. Perhaps the suppression on the 5th floor could stop Dumpling? If Jiuyou Tower was really so easy to get into, it wouldn't make sense, right? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue calmed down a little as she stood on the spot and watched quietly. However, her fantasy was shattered very quickly. That strong barrier didn't stop Dumpling at all. It passed through it easily as if it was entering an uninhabited land. Seeing Dumpling happily wagging her tail at her, Chu Luiyue was silent for a while. She seemed to have underestimated this blood ferret that she had casually picked up. After hesitating for a long time, Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and finally decided to follow Dumpling up. Since they had already come this far, she wanted to see what it was that had attracted Dumpling. In fact, there was another thing she wanted to clarify. When she first came to Jiuyou Tower and pushed the door open, the ferocious beasts carved on the door seemed to have come alive. Ever since she started cultivating here, she had heard that strange sound more than once. Although Chu Luiyue didn't know what kind of magical beast was imprisoned under Jiuyou Tower, she was certain that the magical beast was targeting her. Thinking of this, she made up her mind and stretched out her hand in front of the barrier. Dumpling immediately hugged her hand happily and easily crossed the barrier with her. Looking at the lively Dumpling and his unharmed body, Chu Luiyue pursed his lips and looked up. The staircase spiraled up to the top. However, each layer of barriers was like layers of fog, concealing everything and making it impossible to see anything clearly. A question suddenly flashed across Chu Luiyue's mind. Since only Stage 5 warriors could go up to the 5th level, did the top few levels have the same rules? For example, only Stage 7 warriors could go up to the 7th level? However, there were no cultivators outside Heaven's Canopy who could break through to this level. If that was the case, then what was the point of the top few levels of Jiuyou Tower? One had to know that in the entire country Yaoqin, the strongest was only a Stage 5 warrior. There wasn't even a Stage 6 warrior. In other words, with Jiuyou Tower here, everyone could only go up to the 5th level at most. Who placed such a powerful Jiuyou Tower here? Chu Luiyue recalled that Bai Chen had specially introduced Jiuyou Tower when she was in the academy. However, at that time he only mentioned that the pit of heavenly origins was under Jiuyou Tower, so the density of force in the tower was much better than the outside world. However, he didn't say anything else. A large part of the reason why Chu Luiyue wanted to enter Tianlu Academy was because of Jiuyou Tower. However, she now felt that there were too many secrets buried in Jiuyou Tower. She looked at Dumpling. Shall we continue? When Chu Luiyue entered Jiuyou Tower and broke through the 5th barrier, Rong Xiu had just returned to Yifeng Courtyard from Prince Li's mansion. Yan Qing followed closely behind and quickly reported the day's events to Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu lay down on the rattan chair. His expression was calm and no one could tell if he was happy or angry. Has the time been set? Yan Qing bowed. Not yet. From what Vice Admiral Mu said, it seems like he will be staying here for a while. He also seems to be planning to test Miss Lu Yu again. He will only bring Miss Lu Yu to the Tianling dynasty after she passes all of them. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a faint smile. Of course he won't go back immediately. Mu Qinghe came here because she had other important matters to attend to. You said that she was the one who mentioned that she had a Daijing Yuan meridian? Rong Xiu asked calmly. Yan Qing bowed and replied respectfully, yes. Yes. Rong Xiu remained silent for a while. He crossed his fingers and his eyes darkened slightly. It seems like she really wants to go. Yan Qing sensed that something was wrong with her master's aura. She hesitated for a while and said, to the people of country Yaochen, it's a great opportunity to go to the Tianling dynasty. It's reasonable for Miss Lu Yu to want to go. Besides, Miss Lu Yu is very talented. It's a pity for her to stay here. Rong Xiu closed his eyes gently. Of course he knew this. However, he was more concerned about something else. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked in the direction of Jiuyou Tower. Yan Qing was shocked. Master, what's wrong? Rong Xiu frowned slightly. Someone barged into the 6th floor of Jiuyou Tower. Yan Qing was shocked. Wasn't the sixth floor of Joyo Tower only accessible to stage 6 warriors? No one in the entire Imperial City could do it, let alone Tianlu Academy, right? Master, could it be those? Rong Xiu raised his hand and narrowed his eyes before Yan Qing could finish her sentence. No. He found that aura very familiar. It's her. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately rushed toward Joyo Tower. Why did she enter Joyo Tower at this time? On the other side, Chu Luiyue looked back and still couldn't believe that she had reached the 6th floor just like that. With Dumpling leading the way, she didn't encounter any obstacles. If she hadn't experienced it herself, Chu Luiyue wouldn't have believed that she could reach the top few floors of Joyo Tower in such a way. She looked around and saw that there was no one around. The space here was much smaller than the first floor, but the force was more concentrated. If she cultivated here, she would definitely get twice the result with half the effort. However, at the same time, the rich force was mixed with all kinds of impurities, which made people flinch. However, she still couldn't find any trace of the fiend here. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and looked up. Could it be even higher up? Digression, I'll update slowly in the afternoon after eating. Love mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 288. Chu Luiyue looked at Dumpling. Dumpling, are you going to stop? This is already the 6th floor. It was obvious that only stage 7 warriors could go further up. Dumpling blinked and looked up again, seemingly puzzled by Chu Luiyue's question. There was nothing here, so of course they had to continue going up. Chu Luiyue held her breath for a moment and finally said, "Okay. If you can go up, I'll go with you." Tuanzi wagged its tail happily and turned around, intending to go to the 7th floor. Chu Luiyue looked down and saw that there seemed to be no end to the spiral staircase. Suddenly, her gaze froze and she looked at her feet. There was actually a drop of dried blood there. As it was dark red and fell at the edge, she didn't see it when she came up from below. This was the 6th level. Who would be able to come here and leave behind a trail of blood? She bent down and took a closer look, frowning slightly. According to her experience, this drop of blood seemed to have been left not long ago. It was very likely that it was left in the past 2 days. Who could it be? Chu Luiyue stretched out her hand, wiped the blood gently and looked at it carefully. A familiar aura hit her in the face. She was stunned. This seemed to be. She immediately looked around the drop of blood again. After searching carefully, she finally saw a green feather in an inconspicuous corner. She immediately recognized that it was Hong Yao's feather with just one look. Hong Yao has been here? Chu Luiyue was shocked, and then she suddenly remembered that when she saw Hong Yao previously, there was blood under its wings. It seemed to be injured. At that time, she was immersed in the shock that Hong Yao actually recognized her, so she didn't pay attention to it. Now that she thought about it, it was indeed strange. As a 7th-grade fiend, Hong Yao was very powerful. Being able to injure it showed that the other party wasn't easy to deal with. More importantly, there shouldn't be such an existence in country Yao Chen. From the looks of it, Hong Yao had barged into Joyo Tower and was injured here. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but think of that ferocious magical beast. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't follow her, Dumpling chased after her. When it saw the green feather in Chu Luiyue's hand, a look of disdain flashed across its eyes. As expected, he was useless. He was actually injured here. Chu Luiyue glanced at it. Dumpling, Hong Yao is injured here. Are you sure you want to continue? Even Hong Yao had suffered a loss, so she and Dumpling might not be a match for him. Hearing this, Dumpling's face immediately scrunched up. How could that green sparrow compare to it? Chu Luiyue saw that it was very stubborn, so she couldn't help but sigh. If you run into trouble later, I can't help you. It might even become a burden to her. Dumpling stepped forward angrily and threw away the green feather. Then it hugged Chu Luiyue's hand and walked up. She had made up her mind. Chu Luiyue had no choice but to secretly take out the crystal barrier, ready to deal with any sudden situations. The human and beast continued to walk toward the 7th floor. Chu Luiyue already felt as if something heavy was pressing down on her body, and every step she took was extremely heavy. If not for Dumpling, she probably wouldn't have been able to continue. Finally, the two of them reached the barrier on the 7th floor. Unlike the transparent barriers from before, the one in front of him was actually a bright silver. The brilliance flowed and it looked as brilliant as the galaxy. However, Chu Luiyue was not in the mood to admire it at this moment. She stood stiffly in front of the barrier, and the blood in her body seemed to have solidified. Only her heart was beating wildly. She took a deep breath, and then slowly stretched out her hand and reached forward. Dumpling sat on the back of her hand, and its round eyes were wide open, looking excitedly and expectantly at the flickering silver barrier in front of it. Chu Liyue could clearly see her fingers slowly sinking into the silver barrier. The silver barrier was solid, and Chu Liyue could even clearly feel the strong resistance. This time, it was as if she had plunged into a quagmire. Soon, Chu Liyue felt as if there was a force crazily dragging her, trying to pull her in. Her heart trembled, and she subconsciously tried to pull her hand out. However, the force also grew rapidly, and it swallowed even more of her hand. Very quickly, the flowing light had already pulled her entire hand into it. Dumpling's body was halfway in. At this moment, a ball of black karmic fire suddenly rushed out of the barrier. A burning pain suddenly assaulted him. Chu Liyue immediately wanted to retreat. But at this moment she was already trapped within the silver barrier. She could not move. In an instant the black karmic fire had spread to Chu Liyue's body, and surrounded her. Chu Liyue immediately threw out the crystal barrier. However, she soon realized that the crystal barrier did not have any effect. Because one of her hands had sunk into the silver barrier, the crystal barrier could not pass through the barrier, and could not completely protect her. Helpless, she could only put away the crystal barrier, and began to think of other ways. The blazing flames made her feel as if her entire body was burning. She could even smell something burning. However, at this moment, Dumpling's body had been completely swallowed by the flowing light. Chu Liyue realized that her hand, which had been swallowed by the barrier, was completely numb and had lost all feeling. Therefore at this moment she had lost all sense of Dumpling. Dumpling? Chu Liyue raised her voice and shouted. However, Dumpling did not respond. At this moment, the black karmic fire had completely spread over the entire barrier. Chu Liyue stood there as if she was in hell. Just as she was feeling extremely anxious, she suddenly heard a clear sound. Kacha. Her heart jumped, and she immediately focused her gaze. She saw that the black karmic fire in front of her had suddenly encountered something terrifying, and was rapidly retreating from the center. A crack had appeared on the barrier that was flickering with light. Chu Liyue's brows furrowed, and in the next moment she saw that the crack had expanded again. Crash! The barrier shattered. A small claw suddenly reached out from within. It was Dumpling. Chu Liyue's heart relaxed. Then she saw Dumpling grab the edge of the shattered barrier and forcefully break it. Kacha! A bright and colorful barrier was actually broken like a piece of broken ice by it. Chu Liyue suddenly had a premonition. Indeed, in the next moment she heard the crisp sound of something being bitten. Kacha! Kacha kacha! Gulp! Through the hole in the middle, Chu Liyue could clearly see Dumpling stuffing the last bit of the barrier into her mouth, chewing and swallowing. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 289. This scene was all too familiar. However, Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat uncontrollably when she saw it. How could Dumpling eat this? Previously, when it ate Heng Jingshua's force, she thought it was already shocking enough. She did not expect it to be able to eat a barrier that was full of pressure so easily. This was not an osmanthus cake. Because she was too shocked, Chu Liyue could not say a word for a while. She could only watch in a daze as Dumpling broke off another piece and put it into its mouth. Chu Liyue even saw that there was still a black karmic fire on the barrier that had yet to burn. However, Dumpling did not seem to care at all. Because it was careless, a strand of its beard was burned off. Fortunately, it changed its angle in time and successfully put the thing into its mouth and ate it happily. The black karmic fire around it was still burning wildly, but Chu Liyue suddenly felt that this thing did not seem to be so powerful. No matter how strong it was, wasn't it still eaten by Dumpling? Looking at Dumpling diligently breaking off another piece, the corner of her eyes twitched. If other people saw this scene, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. Dumpling, is it delicious? In the end, she could not help but ask. Dumpling heard her and stopped. It looked at her with bright eyes and nodded furiously. Delicious. Super delicious. It was much better than Heng Jingshua's Moon Devourer. Compared to this, what it ate before was rubbish. Chu Liyue was shocked by its enthusiastic reaction, and the corner of her eyes twitched uncontrollably. So what exactly did she bring back? After the previous few incidents, Chu Liyue had already guessed that Dumpling was not an ordinary blood ferret. It was even different from other magical beasts. She had never heard of any magical beast that consumed origin power as food. She did not notice it before, but later she realized that Dumpling did not seem to like to eat. What it loved the most was origin power, and it was the kind that came in large clumps. Just like this silver barrier. This thing was also condensed from origin power and contained an extremely powerful suppressive might. Chu Luiyue had no doubt that this barrier could indeed stop cultivators below rank 7. Therefore, Dumpling's behavior now looked even more strange. As Dumpling ate crazily, the hole in the barrier grew bigger and bigger. The black karmic fire that was spreading wantonly seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and retreated. However, Dumpling was even faster. She devoured the flaming barrier piece by piece. Chu Luiyue watched quietly, the waves in his heart unable to calm down for a long time. That originally extremely tall silver barrier was quickly reduced to rubble. In the end, it was completely destroyed by Dumpling. As for the hand that had been swallowed, it had been freed at some point. After finishing the last bite, Dumpling finally rubbed her round belly and burped in satisfaction. Burp? Chu Luiyue was speechless. If Hung Jingshua could see this scene, he should be able to rest in peace. In this world, how many people's origin power could receive the same treatment as this powerful barrier? From the looks of it, Dumpling was willing to swallow that ball of origin power because she was compromising. Chu Luiyue looked at the broken barrier in front of him and did not recover for a long time. After a while, he looked at Dumpling faintly. Dumpling, tell me honestly. Did you come here just to eat this? Dumpling suddenly sneezed. Achoo. Chu Luiyue was speechless. She seemed to be guilty? Chu Luiyue held his forehead helplessly. The 7th level's barrier was eaten by Dumpling just like that. This matter would definitely attract the attention of the elders in the academy. It might not even take long for them to rush over. Of course, whether or not they could reach this level was another matter. But if others found out, she felt that she really could not explain it. Did she have to tell everyone that she was brought up by Dumpling and that it was also the one who ate this barrier? Dumpling saw that Chu Luiyue seemed to be very troubled, so it quickly flew over and threw itself into her arms, rubbing against her ingratiatingly. Chu Luiyue's neck tickled and she could not help but laugh. She pulled Dumpling down, annoyed and amused. Don't act cute. Tell me, what should we do now? How was she going to explain such a big hole? Dumpling blinked and thought for a long time. Then it stretched out its paw and pointed upwards. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched violently, and an even more ominous premonition attacked her heart. You still want to go up? Dumpling heard a hint of threat in her voice and nodded timidly. How far were they? If they did not go up, wouldn't they have made this trip in vain? Chu Luiyue's hands trembled slightly, and she kept chanting in her heart. This is my fiend. If I kill it, it will be gone. This is my fiend. If I kill it, it will be gone. This is my fiend. But I don't want to die. Chu Luiyue finally could not hold it in anymore and pinched its chubby cheeks harshly. Dumpling, do you know that your master only has one life? If it's gone just like that, it will really be gone. Tuanzi blinked its eyes and then clasped its paws together. It bowed obediently with its hands folded in front, looking eager to please. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. Go. When the 7th level's barrier was eaten by Tuanzi, Elder Wei Yun, who was dozing off in his chair outside Juyo Tower, suddenly opened his eyes. He looked up at Juyo Tower in shock. This commotion was not right. He had been guarding Juyo Tower for many years, but he had never felt such a commotion. For the past half a year, Juyo Tower had some strange movements from time to time, but it had always been within their control. Thus, even the dean did not take it to heart. But now, boom! The door of Juyo Tower suddenly opened. Several figures were thrown out one after another by a powerful force. They were the students who were cultivating in Juyo Tower. Cries of surprise were incessant. Clearly, these people had not realized what had happened. Some of them could not withstand the impact of this force and even vomited blood. They were extremely pathetic. Elder Wei Yun's heart was in his mouth. For so many years, such a situation had never happened in Juyo Tower. He abruptly stood up and slapped the black jade stone in front of him without any hesitation. A bright light pillar shot up to the sky. Juyo Tower has changed. Other than teachers and elders, all students retreat. Elder Wei Yun shouted sternly. His voice spread far and wide. When the students who were chased out of Juyo Tower heard this, they were all shocked and hurriedly retreated. At the same time, everyone else in the college also saw the light pillar. Level 1 alert. What happened in Juyo Tower? Digression. I'm going out tonight. I don't know when the 5th watch will be updated. Everyone don't wait. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 290. Rong Xiu, who was walking toward Juyo Tower, frowned when he saw the light pillar. He was still a step too late. She had already reached the 7th floor. He quickened his pace and walked forward. Yen Qing followed behind. She was also shocked when she saw the commotion and didn't dare to say a word. Miss Luyu is too daring. She actually caused such a huge commotion in Juyo Tower. The two of them walked forward and soon met the students who were retreating. Prince Li? The girls were shocked when they saw Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu was expressionless as he lightly nodded and continued walking forward. Prince Li, it's dangerous ahead. The girls looked at each other and hurriedly rushed in front of Rong Xiu, wanting to stop him. Rong Xiu quietly looked at the few of them. His expression was calm to the extreme, but those women felt a chill run up from the soles of their feet, rushing straight to their heads. Their joy and excitement for meeting Rong Xiu quickly faded. They looked at each other and their faces turned pale. This Prince Li's aura is not ordinary. Yan Qing immediately said, Prince Li has something important to do. His Highness has important matters to attend to, so please do not delay. The girls came back to their senses and hurriedly stepped aside. Rong Xiu walked forward and didn't even look at her. The girls hesitated for a while and couldn't help but shout, Prince Li, Juyo Tower has changed. It's the most dangerous time for you to go there now. Elder Wei Yun has already ordered everyone to evacuate. It's better if you don't go. Rong Xiu was unmoved and continued walking forward. Yan Qing felt helpless. Can't these people tell that Master has made up his mind to go? If they obstruct him and delay his matters, it would be dangerous for them. Yan Qing turned around and scanned the girls. Prince Li knows what he's doing. The women's faces turned even paler, and they didn't dare to say anything more. Gradually, more and more students began to evacuate. Everyone was moving away from Juyo Tower, and only Rong Xiu went against the flow. Many people were surprised to see him. Why did the frail Prince Li come here at this time? And it looks a little different from before. Some people couldn't help but remind her, but Yan Qing blocked them all. Rong Xiu finally arrived in front of Juyo Tower. Elder Wei Yun was anxiously looking at Juyo Tower when he unintentionally turned his head and saw Rong Xiu walking over. His brows were tightly knitted together. Rong Xiu, why are you here at this time? Now that all the students had been evacuated, the elders and teachers would come to deal with it. You should leave as soon as possible. There are still people inside. Rong Xiu interrupted him. Elder Wei Yun was stunned. Just as he was about to ask who it was, his heart suddenly lit up. Yes, and Chu Luiyue. He had actually almost forgotten about her. He remembered that when she came in the afternoon, he even congratulated her. Thinking back, Chu Luiyue wasn't among the students who came out just now. She was still inside. How did this happen? Juyo Tower changed and all the students were expelled. Why is Chu Luiyue the only one left? Elder Wei Yin also became nervous. Chu Luiyue had taken first place twice in the Qingjiao competition just now. She was undoubtedly the top genius in their academy. If anything happened to her, they wouldn't be able to bear the loss. Rong Xiu looked up at Juyo Tower. I'll go in and bring her out. Elder Wei Yun gritted his teeth and immediately rushed in. But at this moment, Juyo Tower's door slammed shut with a bang. It blocked Elder Wei Yun outside. Elder Wei Yun widened his eyes. Isn't Chu Luiyue completely trapped in Juyo Tower? He tried to open the door but it didn't budge at all. Elder Wei Yun then realized that the situation was more serious than he had imagined. What's going on? Just as he was feeling extremely anxious, Sun Zhongyan and the rest finally arrived. Elder Wei Yun quickly explained the situation to them. There were no signs when Juyo Tower changed. I don't know what's going on. The door can't be opened now. Sun Zhongyan frowned and asked, Is there anyone inside? Elder Wei Yun swallowed his saliva with difficulty. Chu Luiyue is still inside. What? Sun Zhongyan was shocked and immediately looked at Juyo Tower with a frown. Then he crossed his arms in front of him. Rays of light intertwined, and a Xian formation quickly appeared. At the same time, spots of starlight appeared around Juyo Tower. That was the Xian formation set up on Juyo Tower. Sun Zhongyan looked at the Xian formation in front of him carefully. That's not right. There's no trace of her in Juyo Tower. This Xian formation was connected to Juyo Tower. Even if they couldn't enter, they could see something from the Xian formation. Sun Zhongyan looked at it for a while, but he couldn't sense Chu Luiyue's presence. Elder Wei Yun was puzzled. Impossible. She went in the afternoon and all the other students came out together. She was the only one who didn't come out. She should still be inside. Sun Zhongyan held his breath and checked the Xian formation again. He still shook his head. Still nothing. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. This situation was too strange. Elder Wei Yun anxiously paced around in circles. Why can't we find her? She's clearly inside. Rong Xiu suddenly said. Elder Son, which level can your Shen formation see? Sun Zhongyan was stunned and instinctively replied. 5 levels. This Shen formation has been with Juyo Tower for many years, and it has always been able to see 5 levels. You mean? A ridiculous thought flashed across Sun Zhongyan's mind. Could it be that Chu Luiyue isn't on the 5 levels below? That's impossible. Sun Zhongyan blurted out. No one in Tianlu Academy has ever been able to go above the 5th level. How could she? Halfway through his words, his voice abruptly stopped. Other than this explanation, he couldn't find any other answers. Also, Juyo Tower's sudden change seemed very wrong. Everyone fell into dead silence. Suddenly, a scream came from the crowd. That door. Everyone looked over and they were all shocked. They saw that the engraved lines on Juyo Tower's door suddenly jumped. In the blink of an eye, it turned into black karmic fire. It burned fiercely. How could this be? Sun Zhongyan opened his eyes wide and muttered in disbelief. While everyone was still in shock, the fire had already spread rapidly. In an instant, the entire first level of Juyo Tower was surrounded by the black karmic fire. An extremely ferocious roar suddenly sounded from Juyo Tower. It reverberated through the heavens. Digression, I rushed it out with all my might. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 291. Everyone was horrified. What is that? Why were there cries of fiends coming from Juyo Tower? Only Sun Zhongyan was frowning, and his wrinkled face was scrunched up. All Shen Masters, listen up. Activate the Locking Heaven formation. Everyone else, evacuate immediately. Once those words were spoken, everyone looked at Sun Zhongyan in shock. The Locking Heaven formation was the sealing formation of Juyo Tower, and it had never been activated for thousands of years. Now, no one knew what would happen after the Locking Heaven formation was activated. Elder Son, can't the Locking Heaven formation only be activated by the president? Bai Qin asked hurriedly. Sun Zhongyan's face was solemn. I've already informed Uncle Master. I hope he can come out of seclusion as soon as possible. But Juyo Tower has changed and the situation is critical. We can't delay. We have to activate the Locking Heaven formation immediately. Uncle Master has already entrusted the Locking Heaven formation to me, so I can activate it too. As he spoke, he flipped his wrist and a silver needle appeared in his palm. At first glance, the silver needle looked no different from an ordinary silver needle. But if one looked closer, they would see exquisite patterns engraved on it. In fact, the patterns on it were exactly the same as the patterns on Juyo Tower's door. Hearing Sun Zhongyan's words, everyone knew that this was the only way now. No one knew when the president would come, but Juyo Tower's situation couldn't wait any longer. Seeing the silver needle in Sun Zhongyan's hand, everyone felt more at ease. Elder Son, please give us your orders. Sun Zhongyan rose into the air. He threw the silver needle in his hand. The silver needle grew in the wind and rapidly expanded to the size of a person's arm. From afar it looked like a silver pestle. Then the silver pestle landed right above Juyo Tower. It spun rapidly. Locking Heaven formation, activate. Sun Zhongyan shouted and countless silver lights flew out of his hand. They all poured into the silver pestle. The next moment, a buzzing sound was heard. The patterns on the silver pestle suddenly lit up. Swoosh. A silver dot of light flew out and landed in a certain location. Sun Zhongyan said, Bai Qin. She sang. Without saying a word, Bai Qin immediately flew over and stood on top of the star. Swoosh. A second silver light quickly appeared and flew to the other side. Wenyan. Nanqi. Qinshao. Donglu. Qigao. Beisi. Sun Zhongyan quickly gave the order, and all the Shen Masters moved out. A huge Shen formation quickly appeared in the sky above Juyo Tower. Countless silver lines flew out from the silver pestle and intertwined with each other. Starlight flickered on them and spread out like stars on a chessboard. All the mystic cultivators also spread out and prepared to attack. The Heaven Sealing formation was a level 6 Shen formation, and no Shen Master in the academy could activate it alone. Therefore they could only work together. When everyone was in position, Sun Zhongyan shouted in a deep voice. Activate. As soon as he said that, all the Shen cultivators moved at the same time and poured their origin power into the starlight beneath their feet. Streams of light flew out and flowed along the huge interweaving lines in the air. They were all gathered in the silver pestle. A vast pressure descended. Above Juyo Tower, the locking sky formation was activated. Below Juyo Tower, the other teachers had already begun to evacuate. At a time like this, the only thing they could do was to ensure the safety of everyone in the academy. Rongxiu. Let's go. Elder Wei Yun saw that Rongxiu was still standing at the same spot and thought that he hadn't reacted yet, so he hurriedly advised him. It's very dangerous here. You can't stay here. Given Juyo Tower's current situation, no one could say for sure what would happen. The heaven ceiling formation had already been activated, and the pressure was extremely strong. When the two forces collided, the people standing at the side would bear the brunt of it. Rongxiu didn't have much cultivation and his body was weak. How could he withstand such a crushing force? If anything happened to Rongxiu, they wouldn't be able to explain it to His Majesty. However, Rongxiu didn't seem to hear anything and only looked up at the 7th level of Juyo Tower. Rongxiu. Elder Wei Yun shouted again, but Rongxiu still didn't respond. He couldn't help but become more anxious. When he turned back, the black karmic fire had already completely surrounded the 1st level of Juyo Tower, and the door was completely sealed. What was even more worrying was that it didn't have any intention of stopping and was spreading toward the 2nd level. The scorching flames had already started to ignite the surroundings. The air was so hot that it could almost burn people. Elder Wei Yun was burning with anxiety. He had to control this fire as soon as possible. Otherwise, once it spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yanqing. Take him away quickly. Elder Wei Yun had no choice but to shout at Yanqing. Yanqing looked up, glanced at Elder Wei Yun and shook his head firmly. Elder Wei Yun, please forgive me. Yanqing has always been obedient to His Highness. Since His Highness wanted to stay here, he naturally had to follow. Even if he knew that it was very dangerous, he had no other choice. Because that person was in even more danger now. If anything happened to Chu Luiwei, Yanqing didn't dare to imagine what his master would do. Elder Wei Yun couldn't help but curse in his heart when he saw that the master and servant didn't listen to him at all. These two fools. Everyone else had already left. Were they really going to stay here and wait for death? Boom. A ball of black karmic fire suddenly rose. It actually shot straight up to the 3rd level. Elder Wei Yun wasn't paying attention and was hit by the blast. He lost his balance and took a few steps back. Screech. The fiend's screech sounded again. Everyone's mind was shaken. The entire school seemed to be enveloped in this fierce and shrill screech. Elder Wei Yun's blood was in turmoil, and he almost spat out blood. He looked up at Juyo Tower in shock. What kind of fiend was suppressed in there? It was actually so powerful. It was just a screech, but it actually had such a frightening aura. At the same time, even the students and teachers who had retreated far away were somewhat affected. They widened their eyes in shock as they looked at Juyo Tower. Their hearts were in turmoil. Gosh, Juyo Tower is actually burning? What exactly is going on? Old Sun and the rest actually activated the locking heaven formation? This is the first time in 1,000 years, right? Weren't the few of you still cultivating in Juyo Tower previously? Do you know what exactly is going on? How would we know? Everything was fine before. Suddenly, there was a huge force that chased us out. We didn't even have time to react. Luckily, you all came out. If you were still inside, I'm afraid. Wait. I just heard from Elder Wei Yun that Chu Luiwei seems to still be inside. What? Then isn't she? Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. Chu Luiwei is most likely doomed this time. On the other side, Elder Wei Yun finally caught his breath. Suddenly, he saw a tall figure striding toward Juyo Tower. He was shocked. Rongxiu. Stop right there. However, Rongxiu didn't stop and continued forward without hesitation. In an instant, the black karmic fire enveloped him and swallowed him. Digression. I'm staying at my friend's house. She's still sleeping and I'm sitting on the bay window quietly typing. I think it's better to read it at night. Updates will drop from time to time. I'm in debt again and again. Too much debt is no burden. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.